normal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger roll with Atlantis.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight outside SC off. Say again, SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Hello everybody, and welcome to a live view of Ship 24 out there in Starbase, Texas, where SpaceX is spooling up for some Ship 24 testing today. So we're going to bring you live coverage of whatever testing SpaceX goes for today. We can talk a little bit about what we might be able to expect during today's window. My name is Thomas Burkhart, News Director for NASA Spaceflight, and I'm joined by two other NASA Spaceflight writers today. First of all, Adrian Beal. Adrian, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. 2 Starship tests in a row. What is this, 2021?
It is a good time for Starship testing to be spooling back up again. I think we can all agree on that. And then our other friend on comms with us today is Alex. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Trying to see if we can see some testing today.
Absolutely. We actually saw what we believe to be a spin prime test the other day, and but the road has been closed again, and we have observed the tank farm and recondenser becoming active again today. So signs of additional testing on Ship 24 today, and we're going to dive in because normally, without any sort of overpressure noticed, we would presume that that requires that they could only do maybe another spin prime test or something. We also saw them testing like B7.1 test tank earlier yesterday, so that we could oh, maybe they're just not testing Ship 24. But given that the tank farm and recondenser are active, we have to talk about the different options that we could see today. We could see another spin prime test. There is also the train of thought where maybe we're paying too close attention to whether or not there's an overpressure notice. To be very clear, there has not been an overpressure notice given today. If there was, we would be able to tell you all that. But the lack of an overpressure notice, while would normally indicate there's no plan for any sort of pre-burner test where you would be igniting propellants that have gone through the engine, or of course an actual static fire where the engines fully start and generate thrust, the possibility that that procedure is outdated could potentially... maybe we shouldn't ignore that, given how long it's been since there's been a pre-burner test. Michael Baylor, NSS Michael Baylor, did a very good thread on Twitter, and I'm just going to run through this, explaining why we want to hedge on that. Basically, the last time we got an alert notice was late last year. It has been a very long time. Obviously, the environmental assessment has been a new development. The written policy still states that SpaceX is required to notice residents of Boca Chica Village of any potential overpressure event, which would, and all of the pre-burner tests of Ship 20 included pre-alert notices. So, ideally, we should get an overpressure notice for a pre-burner test. It's just worth noting that when Ship 24 did its spin prime test yesterday, and those normally precede a pre-burner test, at least they have in the past. It didn't yesterday, of course. Or it didn't the other day, I should say. There was no alert notice there. So there's some conflicting information, and we're not super confident that the procedure will be exactly the same. It would be great if we got overpressure notice before any pre-burner test happened, and we would know for sure that that is still the procedure. So we're just going to put that out there as potential options. I think, would you guys say that the most likely plan for today is another spin prime test?
Until like half an hour ago, I was fully convinced it's a spin prime, but then we also observed an igniter test. We could hear it on our audio. So now I'm in a bit conflicted state, because them testing igniters right before they move into a testing operation is, I don't know, it's maybe just a feeling, but that feels a bit weird to me. That's at least how I feel right now. But of course, the common logic points into this being another spin prime test. So it's really a bit complicated.
Yeah, that is the other piece of the puzzle. Earlier today, we heard them test the igniters in the Raptor engines on Ship 24. However, that was obviously before propellant loading signs started with the tank farm becoming active and things like that. And again, we won't know the propellant loading is actually underway until the ship itself starts venting, right?
But just to underline that, so far the way this tank farm performs, it's a bit different to yesterday. Also,
and how so?
Because yesterday we basically had both parts of the tank farm starting to work individually. So we had first the lock site action and then the methane recondenser action, and then it really went into steam. Today it was, I would call it more classic. We had today more classic approach. But just as I say this, the recondenser went off and proves me wrong. So this might be the test flow of yesterday yet again. So yeah, recondenser is off right now.
I feel like we're going to need to do another update once we have some more tests of the new ships under our belt that says, all right, here is the new fueling procedure, because we did a video and I think even an article. In fact, I think, Adrian, your very first article for NASA Spaceflight was like the analysis that we had done, or you had mostly done, of how SpaceX uploads a Starship for a test flight. And I think we're going to need to do an update because a lot of the assumptions that we had from previous testing have not necessarily held true for the new vehicles and the new ground systems. Also, I think I misspoke. I might have said the ship is going to be venting when prop load happens. The bigger sign is that the ship gets frosty. The tanks get cold when the propellant goes on board, and the tanks generate those frost lines. It's not necessarily venting right away. So my apologies. But anyway, yeah, so we're keeping an eye on both the ground equipment, and then, of course, once there is signs of propellants being loaded onto the vehicle, that'll be our sign that they're getting close to whatever test they do go for today. Of course, over the course of today's coverage, we're going to take as many questions of today as that we can, and we've already got a bunch coming into chat, so let's take a look at those. Okay, so let's talk about why they might be repeating this test, because we have a question here. Musical says, was yesterday only 3 engines and today they could test all 6? Or did we see all 6 engines get tested yesterday?
It did look like to me that there were 6 engines, but it was like staggered, you know, where the center 3 engines were coming up first, and then like a second or 2 later probably the other 3 came on. So it seemed to me like 6 engines, and we've seen that pattern also on pre-burner tests and static fire tests on ship 20, like in the previous ship. So it does make sense to me that the test that we saw the other day was 6 engines. Just the first 3 just came first, obviously, and then because the first 3, right, redundant there, and yeah, then another 3, which are the vacuum ones. It's similar to how ship 20 was. I remember, if I remember correctly, it was the center engines first, and then the outer vacuum engines, and yeah, like eventually it's all 6 engines, and then they all shut down. But it seems like they come up first, the center engines, and then the vacuum engines. So I don't know. I think yeah, 6 engines the other day, and it kind of lines up with ship 20 testing.
There you go.
But also, I want to point out the recondenser is up again.
Right, so Adrian, I was going to ask you, where, for people that may be new or not familiar with all the camera angles that we've got, where are you looking to see whether the recondenser is active or not?
Yes, the recondenser, you can see that behind the 3 vertical tanks that are right next to each other on the, more on the right side of the tank farm. These 3 black tanks. Behind that, you see a steam of white clouds coming, and that is basically a producing of the recondenser. So if you remember early testing of Starship, you remember the flare stack, which was used to burn methane before it enters the atmosphere, because methane is a gas that is harmful for our environment. So you either burn it or not release it to the atmosphere at all, which now is kind of the purpose of the recondenser, because it helps the tank farm to recondense, aka make methane liquid again and put it back into the tanks. So basically it's a replacement of a flare stack. And also a good indicator for us that they are testing with the ship.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're gonna have to fit that into again the countdown update video. Where to look to know if fueling is underway or whatever. We've also had some support come in really quick. Tim became a Red Team member, so thank you, Tim, and Phoenix with a Capcom membership. Thank you both for your support. Keeping the questions coming here as we hear some venting.
Yeah, that was loud. But so far it seems like it's only all still based on the left side, so on the tank farm, not on the ship, as far as I can see.
So there you go. So here's our first question, or not first, next question from Nick, who says, is there a separate tank farm for the suborbital pad, or are they using the orbital farm?
Yeah, there's a separate tank farm for the suborbital pad. It's right there.
Right. The tank farm we're seeing here is not the orbital tank farm. Well, I guess the tank farm in the background. But
yeah, the ones in the background are obviously from the for the orbital tank farm, but the ones here nearby, those are the suborbital tank farm.
And just as a service information for everyone out there, the next thing we should expect to see, that kinda depends on humidity and temperature and everything. Sometimes you can see how the ground lines that are going to the ship freeze up when they start to put liquids into the ship. So watch for that, because sometimes you can really see how the clouds are creeping up to the ship and slowly approaching it before they start fueling it. So that sometimes is really cool to see.
Alright. All good things to keep an eye out for, and of course sometimes chat notices things before we do. So, chat, let us know if you see something. But we're all watching closely, of course. Musical Wolves with another question. Could Ship 24 receive Booster 7's engines to check if those engines are still fine? I think there are other ways they can inspect and test those engines.
Yeah, that would be a funny way to static fire or test engines, but I would expect them to, if they want to inspect them, they would probably first do it in Boca and look at them in the tents. We know there's this Raptor tent where they basically store all of these engines, and if there's more doubt about that, then they will maybe send them back to McGregor, test them there. But I doubt they would test them on a ship, because they could only test 3 engines even at once on the ship. So that would limit their test capability quite a lot.
I mean, that would also require you to remove the engines that are already installed on Ship 24, and Ship 24's purpose is not to be a test stand, it's to be a vehicle in its own right. And then we know that they have other Raptors that were originally slated for Booster 8. Like, if engine swaps are required, they'll just swap the engines to that have already been tested in McGregor and delivered to Starbase for the purposes of being installed on a booster. So I don't think there's any reason for them to do any sort of testing on Booster 7's engines like that. But to tie that into another question, how many engines have we seen be replaced on Booster 7 so far?
Not 100.
Maybe this is an Alex question.
13, Alex?
I don't know. I think we've seen a couple of them coming off. Probably, yeah. A dozen of them might have been coming off, yeah. I don't have the exact number, obviously, but...
Yeah, and it's possible. I mean, we don't necessarily see every single one either, so...
Yeah.
Gotcha. But
and it's hard
not
to see.
More than 0, less than 33.
Yes, there's still engines below it, and it's not a full set anymore.
Gotcha. And that's all, of course, happening not at the launch site, because Booster 7 has been rolled back to the production site into the Mega Bay, which is where those operations are taking place. Another question from Paul. What is the regulatory authority that demands those overpressure notices? Do we know the criteria? So, alright, I'll pull up, again, I'm going to reference everyone to Michael Baylor's Twitter, because he put together a quick thread that kind of shows why we're not necessarily skeptical, but all the things that we should be considered. Here is the exact wording from the FAA. As necessary to mitigate the risk of injury to the village residents due to overpressure, Cameron County will exercise its authority to protect the public and direct residents to go outside their properties. Cameron County will provide warnings to residents by distributing a written notice to residents in the village and will alert residents when the launch operation giving rise to the overpressure risk is imminent. So, that overpressure risk would be created by an ignition source and the presence of propellants. Obviously, Booster 7 was likely an unintentional, like that wasn't planned for that environment to take place, so that's not necessarily the plan. Like, Booster 7 is not necessarily a data point that says, oh, clearly they're not doing pressure notices anymore, because that was unintentional and not planned. But yeah, so if we were to expect a planned ignition source, such as a pre-burner test, for example, this writing, which is the Cameron County's authority, would suggest that they'll have a overpressure notice. Hopefully that answers the question. Go ahead.
Like basically the TLDR is, from a regulatory standpoint, we absolutely expect one. However, we are not sure if maybe something changed, and it's a bit iffy.
Right. The question: have there been multiple spin prime tests on previous ships, or only one before the pre-burner and/or static fire? Did we see how many spin prime tests did we see on ship 20?
Ooh, I think we actually saw one or two. I think we saw one when they did the single Raptor vacuum test, because they did a couple of tests where they only fired one or two engines. I remember one where it was just the Raptor vacuum, then another one which was the one sea level and one vacuum, and then they did another one later, like a few weeks later or a few days later, that was all 6 engines. And I remember for the individual test, like the individual engine test, I remember a spin prime for that one, but also a spin prime was performed for the all engine, like in preparation for the all engine pre-burner and static fire test. So yeah.
Also, just to add to that, sometimes it's a bit hard to identify if something was an aborted pre-burner test or a spin prime, because we had things where we expected pre-burner testing, and then it looked like a spin prime because they basically aborted before they ignited. It was kind of like, sometimes these are visually hard to identify.
Right, that's a good point.
Someone is asking what happened to the original host for NASA spaceflight. I mean, two of the people here are already from way back then, right? I'm kind of the new guy, but Thomas and Adrian have been here for a long time.
But Adrian is our Starship countdown expert, and then SpaceX just does things like upload without the recondenser, and then Adrian goes, "What the heck?" So
I was very mad. People can absolutely attest you. There are some chats from me where I'm like, that's not fair.
I think they're loading already on the liquid oxygen tank.
Oh boy.
I'm seeing the bottom of the tank is darker, which usually indicates it is getting cold.
Yeah, you're right.
So
and I did an A/B check, and it's actually a change.
Okay, so we gotta tell everyone where exactly you're looking. So on ship, the lock tank is on the bottom? Question mark.
Yep.
Okay, right.
So, right where the umbilical is located. Oh, come on, Michael! You changed the view.
There we go.
There you go. So in between the flaps, you can see something there at the bottom, like attached to the ship. Right above it, you can see some line, some dark line,
like
horizontal line.
Band there.
Yeah, that's a dark band, and no, not that. That's the methane tank, Michael.
Down like in the middle of where the flaps are folded against, right above that ground. Is that a quick disconnect?
That's a quick disconnect.
Right.
Well, it's actually not a quick disconnect because it is neither disconnected or quick. So
yeah, well, it is a umbilical connection, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even a little further down.
A no QD.
There you go.
There you go.
Right above that.
And right above it, that's where the weld line it is for the bottom bulkhead. There you go.
Michael's got it.
But see, now He's obscuring.
Michael is
Michael-
not having like
Ah,
Michael's getting
jeez.
a hard time from Alex here right now. You know he can mute you, right?
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
But yeah, if you go back like 10 minutes ago, it wasn't there, and it's usually, again, usually not always, but sometimes you can see that kind of what are you saying? Thrust.
Thrust.
Yeah, that's the aft section,
There we go.
which
Michael
they
is
are
getting us the nice detailed.
4 rings, then LOX tank, which is 6 rings, and then another 4 rings for the methane tank. There you go, and then the payload bay section with a mailbox open in there, and then
Is that
the
what we're
nose
calling
cone
it
with
now?
the
The
decals
mailbox
and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody can stop us. We are on stream here. Nobody can.
Hey,
can stop us
if
from
you want to
calling.
see better drawings than this, Pauline made some awesome drawings for the Starship design changes video that we did a couple of months ago. Do check that out. Just gonna say that.
So that's where we're looking, and we've also got some questions about the ground tanks. Can you like point out what we think? Do we know at least what each tank specifically is for? And if so, can we like point that out maybe?
You want to do
I
that,
think
Adrian?
I think the 3 verticals right before the V-condenser are water tanks, right?
Yeah.
Those 3 dark ones that are like
Yes.
closest to the camera, right?
These should be water tanks, and the horizontal ones should be methane. I'm
yeah.
also a bit struggling on that as well. I'm
Yeah,
totally
so-
gonna admit it.
The horizontal one closer to the ship is the methane one, and then there's another one to the left of that, but not sure if moving the camera right now will be a wise thing to do. So a little bit to the left there is the oxygen tank, and then there are a couple of smaller tanks, also horizontal, which are usually to hold some of the basically the gaseous oxygen and gaseous methane recovered from the vehicle before it is then recondensed. That's why it is a recondenser.
Hence the name.
Exactly, and it's recondensed and put back in liquid form into the ground tanks, so that you don't waste any sort of oxygen or methane. Not because it's expensive, but usually because the logistics of bringing all of that is the expensive part, right? And you don't want to waste time. It's easier to just put a recondenser there. And for the methane, in this case, it's also because of environmental stuff and
venting pure
concerns.
methane is not a good time.
Yep. And then some of the vertical tanks, the 3 vertical tanks to the left, right in front of the crane, those are related with nitrogen. They are used usually for some of the pressurization of the tank farm, and also when, like, one of them, I think it's also liquid nitrogen, or perhaps all of them. I'm not 100% sure, because it's been a long time since this was built, and I remember back then. Now I don't remember, because it's been so many months since then, and so long that it just escapes me. But I do remember one of them actually said liquid nitrogen, and then they painted it over and painted black. Yeah,
I think
so
you can see the ground line right now creeping over this berm.
Ooh.
It went more to the right now. So it also the tank farm behavior changed. So
a lot more vapors over there right now. So potentially getting into some prop load very shortly. And to tie in with all the tanks that we were just talking about, the recondenser is behind those 3 dark vertical tanks that are closest to the camera, right behind that, and the reason we see a whole bunch of vapors there is in part because of the recondenser. You can't actually see it, but we can see the vapors coming from it when it turns on. So that's where we're looking at the recondenser.
And right now you can see how a bit of condensation is going even right to the recondenser, which means it's not really bound from the tanks. It has to be bound from the ground lines, because there's no tank there. So it means like some sort of ground line is freezing up there. And I always try to explain this to me myself, that more vapor not certainly means more cold, but also more area that is cold and can produce condensation.
There we go. Thank you, Michael. The Michael art is on point so far. We appreciate you. I remember at the old, we're gonna have to make a new one. We had a overlay that we could put on from some of the old camera views and the old ground support setup of like pointing out where everything was. And I guess we'll have to do an update on that for, especially when we get into some static fire testing. But anyway, we got a whole bunch of questions here, so I'm gonna run these as fast as I can. Alexander asks, could Starship carry a space shuttle into space? No. But if you want to try it in Kerbal, I recommend that you do. And also we have, I don't know how to say this name, VDIV, with a very generous $55 super chat. Just says, thanks for all the details. NSF has really grown and matured as a team and as a community, has become essential for getting and understanding space news. So VDIV, thank you so much for your super chat support. That's a very generous amount. We really appreciate it. And thank you for the kind words. Glad you're enjoying the coverage. One of our shuttle experts on the back channel was telling me that the Starship could launch an orbiter into space. I have questions about how that's possible. Where are you gonna put the orbiter?
That's weird.
Well, okay, from a pure mass, from a pure mass number, okay, sure, but the orbiter wouldn't fit in Starship.
Just put it on the side.
I was more
Done
thinking, yeah, sign mounted onto Starship. There you go. Let's do it. There's a Kerbal creation if I've ever heard one. Alright, some more questions here. Niall asking, has the FTS had any work recently could be in preparation for a static fire? Alright, so hold on, I'm going to split this into two questions. Would we expect the flight termination system to be worked on ahead of a static fire test, even if it's never going to leave the ground?
So far, it's sort of the flight termination system is to control a vehicle that is basically out of control in flight, because you want to terminate the vehicle before it produces harm to citizens. However, and just as a side note here, they worked on the area where the FTS is located most likely, but that could also be like early preparation work, that could be routine checks, that could be anything.
Sure.
So yes, they worked on that area, but no, we wouldn't expect any arming for these kinds of tests.
Got it.
Also, that area, you can see the box is open. So if you see the two cowbell vents, and if you see two rings up, there's to the left a circular black thing. That's the hatch to the methane tank. Well, to the right and a little bit below, there's like a black box thing. It's actually because it's open, so you can see the insides with all the wiring and all the bits, and that's where the FTS is thought to be located once they install it. But it rolled out to the pad. The ship rolled out to the pad when basically the FTS box was closed, and now suddenly they worked on it for a few days on the pad, and it's open. So that's probably why the question that hey, they worked on it. Maybe that's because they wanted to put the FTS or something for a static fire. Might be, might be not. We did see on previous ships, and I think even on our booster, we saw them installing the FTS for a static fire once, but it was just like one-off, and I think that could have probably been just for integrated testing of sorts, but not even armed. I don't think they will even arm such a thing.
Yeah, we saw arming operations before every flight.
Yeah,
well.
once you get ready for flight, that's when you actually arm it. Yeah.
That was actually one of our biggest watch points on every flight stream.
Yeah.
I so far was on no flight stream, but I watched them all. Yeah, I remember us all watching the FTS box and watching them going up there and arming it. So yeah, that was an arming process before the flight.
Another question here from Billy. Why is it called an overpressure warning? I believe the easiest way to describe this is it's not necessarily a result of, like igniting the engines in a controlled manner would not create an overpressure event. But if ignition happens and the tanks explode for whatever reason, that's the overpressure event that they're talking about there, where the propellants ignite off nominally and the vehicle explodes. That would be an overpressure news.
even see it on our recent video about the Booster 7 anomaly. In one of the camera angles, you can see a shockwave being created, which is basically an overpressure event, right?
Right, exactly.
Also, do we have a vent on the left side of the Starship pad?
Oh, a little bit, yeah. So there are a little bit of vapors from the launch mount there. Would that be a confirmation that propellant loading is underway?
That is at least the propellant is at this point reaching.
Or
the
at
ship.
least the propellant has reached the launch pad. Yeah, I guess.
Yes, I would say that is a confirmation for that. So I think we can kinda say at this point they are into loading.
All right, sounds good. Keep an eye on that. Let's keep some questions coming. If Gwen asks, as Ship 24 is the first ship not designed to launch directly from the pad, I would argue Ship 20 is, but we'll keep going. Would it have a different engine startup procedure? Probably not, I would say, right? Would we expect any changes there?
Based on what we saw with the spin prime, I would say no, because we kinda saw something, as Alex pointed out earlier, this looked similar to previous static fire tests. Like in the way they started it up.
Right. So I don't think that the different flight profiles for the different vehicles, or the different testing plans, I should say, change the startup procedure. All right. Do we think that they could perform a booster or Starship capture test without performing a high altitude flight? I mean, take off, hold, and land with the tower capture. I don't think we've heard any indications of that kind of plan, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've heard any of that.
First catch attempt coming back from space, huh?
I mean, at this point, they could also, if they want to test it, they could still just perform a high altitude flight to also test that part again and kind of make it a realistic simulation of a catch attempt.
To me, it makes more sense to just test everything because even the landing, for example, for the ship, when it was landing on the legs, at the end of the day, when you perform an orbital launch and you return from orbit and everything, the last 3 minutes is gonna be just like the belly flop sequence and landing that we saw from the previous ships, right? It's just gonna be coming down subsonic from like 10 kilometers or a bit higher at that point. Like the last 3 minutes are just gonna be probably about 10 kilometers all the way to the ground, including the flip and landing burn and everything. Now, obviously, you want to prove that with a catch tower. Obviously, you wouldn't try it out on the first try. Now, SpaceX is obviously not known for that kind of shying away from trying wild things. So they might try, they might not try. Obviously, the first flight is not going to be like that. At least for the ship. The booster may or may not. There's some things out there that may indicate probably the booster might do it. But still not confirmed 100%. But on the other hand, if you think about it, why do a test, like why do a hop and then land on the chopsticks when you just, launch it into orbit, then come back and, try the landing? And you get more bang for your buck in that sense, right? Than just doing a hop. You just do a hop, you're just basically not doing anything. You're not getting any from the test other than that specific test regime and that specific data, when you can gather much more data and you can take Starlinks to orbit, for example, if you do an orbital launch and then return the ship. You can test the TPS, you can test the propulsion, the flaps, like you can test a bunch of things in the way, and also release satellites. So yeah, you get you get way more stuff if you do a full-on orbital launch than if you just do a hop.
Yeah, totally get that. We got some more Super Chat support and things that have come through here. Tim C says Michael fan club, so Tim, thank you so much. I'm sure Michael appreciates it, and we appreciate the support as well. Space Guy became a Capcom member, so welcome to the membership program there. Dale wants to know, well, says, great work, guys, so thank you. And asks, what temperature is it out there? Do we have a temperature reading for Starbase right now? Oh, I might have to do a quick Google.
Well,
Oh, hold on.
there's a website called Next Spaceflight.
Oh, yeah, it's on wenhop.com. How could I forget?
Yeah, it's
currently
33.9 degrees Celsius, 93 degrees Fahrenheit.
hot. The answer is hot.
Yeah, it's about as hot as in my living room.
There seems to be a little bit of venting from the vehicle.
I was about
perhaps.
to say, has that venting made it underneath the actual vehicle now?
I have not seen it yet.
I still only see those vapors on the stand. So on the left-hand side view, if you look at the left of the stand the ship is sitting on, there's a little bit of vapors there. We definitely saw that earlier. On the right-hand view, it's hard because there's all those vapors behind it, obviously, from the tank farm. But
I think there's an illusion on the right side. I think that it looks like there's something coming from below it, but it might just be the vapors behind it going down, and that making it look like there is something. But
it's hard to see.
I'm looking because there's also the on the left-hand side view, I see none of that. Well, all right. Now that I say that, hold on.
It's always embarrassing if you do this in front of like thousands
I
of
know.
people.
You can only fail. Staring at our monitors right now is like, where's that vapor coming from?
Yeah, who spots it? Like, if I look
from
on the
this
right
view,
side,
there are. I don't know. It's hard because also the tanks in the back. There are some dark-colored tanks back there, so I'm not sure if that's a shadow from the ship or if that's just when there's not vapors, you're seeing the tank that's there.
That's
there
exactly
we go.
my thinking.
Yeah, see, I don't see any vapor. I only see vapors coming from the stand here.
Yeah, I see nothing that, like, how it looks on the other camera. It almost looks like it pulls us out in a forceful way, and I see nothing like that here. But it's hard to.
Yeah, I think we're just seeing the vapors from the tank farm, and it looks a little bit weird with the dark tanks and the gap underneath the ship.
Yeah.
Definitely, absolutely, I think we all agree there's vapors coming from the stand itself. So if the ship has not begun propelling already, it's getting very close.
Yes. But what kinda speaks against for me to that they are loading something is that the tank didn't really change anymore in terms of like getting really frosty.
Right, sure, that'll be another sign, of course.
Yeah, it doesn't look like super frosty already. So,
all right,
it's hard to make a call.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on it, obviously, but we'll keep some questions coming in the meantime. Carson asks, what's the point of a static fire if the engines are tested in McGregor? There's a difference between testing the engine and testing the entire vehicle, right?
Yeah, you can test the engines with the vehicle, and like it's closer to the flight configuration, and also because you can test all of the plumbing and everything. You know, we can see some venting from ship 24 on the skirt.
Yep. Yes, that's the engine vents, right?
Is that also a frost ring?
Oh, here we go.
Starting to appear. There you go.
That's the engine vents, right?
Yeah, but also I think I'm starting to see a frost ring forming on the LOX tank.
On the very bottom of the LOX tank, just a very thin frost line.
Very, very thin. But you can see
folks.
It there.
So, that confirms for sure that propellant loading is underway onto Ship 24. Again, we are expecting some form of Ship 24 engine testing today. The exact objectives that they're going for is not known for sure. There's a couple options. We saw them do a spin prime earlier this week, which is just flowing propellant through the engine but not igniting anything. We could see them repeat that for any number of reasons. Even if it's pure, we just want to do it again for more data. Or if any objectives weren't met by the earlier test. It is also possible that they could go for, if the alert notice procedures have changed, in theory, they could be advancing into pre-burner testing, but we don't think that's the most likely outcome. because we do still, based on the regulations, would expect a overpressure notice before they intentionally ignite anything in the Raptor engines. Intentionally, of course, because booster 7, but for ship 24, if they are intending to do a pre-burner test where they light the propellants into the engine during kind of getting farther into the start sequence, we could expect that as an option. But the leading candidate is still a spin prime test, we believe. Do we want to talk about what I believe this procedure where we're seeing the sort of the engine chill vents that we're seeing active right now, which are those vents in the engine section of the vehicle, are behaving a little bit differently than on the previous test? Is that right?
Yeah, they're coming up earlier than we saw on the previous test. So for the spin prime test that we saw the other day, we saw first the frost line coming up, and once the LOX tank was a little bit frosty, we started to see the engine chill vents. But that was actually I'm not sure about the timing, but it felt to me that it was like 20 or 30 minutes after the frost. Here's like engine chill, and then the frost line appears like within seconds. So it's certainly different procedure. So I'm not sure what it means, but
right, it's different.
It's
we don't know what that
different,
means,
right?
though.
Yeah, I don't know what it means. It's different. I don't know.
Yeah, I tried to compare this data to yesterday's test, and I basically noted down yesterday's times and compared them now. And at this point I stopped doing it because this is not the same test. This is not the same procedure, and whatever they're doing, it's different from yesterday.
I will still write it down just in case.
Oh yeah, I'm still writing down the times. I'm just not comparing them anymore.
But
see, the guy for the timings, that's Adrian, not me. I said it felt like 20-30 minutes. Maybe he comes here and he's like, no, you know, it was like 13 minutes and 24.5 seconds.
I mean,
exactly.
To be fair, in these test analyses, sometimes actually a lot of times, you notice patterns way after the test. Because what I do when I'm done with these tests is I put all the footage we have into Premiere and then basically sync them by time and just scroll through it, and sometimes put a different test over it and scroll through it and try to see patterns. And finding these live is sometimes hard because wind and conditions change, but once you really have the time to put it in Premiere and really look at them frame by frame, suddenly they make sense.
Alright. Adrian, we know you spend a lot of time watching Starship testing, but I have a question by someone named Jack Beyer who wants to know if you've watched The Fifth Element yet.
No.
Oh no!
Sorry, Jack. I'm expecting an angry PM very soon.
Jack
He's
Beyer,
not here, but he can sue chaos.
NASA spaceflight photographer, commentator, all sorts of things for NASA spaceflight. Also sends a message that says he's getting in the car, winky face. I wonder where Jack's off to these days. Huh, stay tuned. Jack, safe travels. Also, G. Richards with no message, just a $20 super chat, so thank you for the support there, Richards. Appreciate that. A good question here from Cassidy. Could we briefly explain all of the different pre-launch engine tests? Absolutely. So the one we've seen Ship 24 already do the other day, we're calling a spin prime test, which is basically flowing liquid oxygen through the pumps of Raptor, like you are starting the startup sequence for the engine, but you don't ignite anything. Do I have that correct, that only liquid oxygen gets flowed through on the Raptor spin primes?
I believe so. Yeah, they test the oxygen pumps. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then that would be different from the fuel pre-burner test, which is usually the next step, where you flow methane through the methane pumps, and then that actually involves igniting some of it, or all of it, I guess. But when we say a pre-burner, that is different from lighting the main combustion chamber.
Yeah, and the pre-burner, I believe the fuel pre-burner test also entails using the LOX pump, because you obviously have to pump some liquid oxygen into the preburner.
Right. Yeah. I should say
into the fuel
you're adding the
preburner.
methane, but it's both. Right.
Yeah, because it's like full flow stage combustion cycle, and so it's like all interconnected. You just
Right.
don't ignite both, because
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
ignite both, that's maybe a little bit of a problem with Raptor 2 now.
So fuel preburner, you add the ignition source that's farther up in the plumbing than the actual main combustion chamber. Of course, we've talked about how on the new Raptor 2s, there's not actually igniters in the main combustion chamber. There's some different method of combining the ignition there. But before it reaches the main combustion chamber, some of the methane is ignited to add some energy before it actually reaches the combustion chamber. And that's what we call a preburner test. And so there we would see fire come out of the engines, there would be an ignition, it just wouldn't be a full start, and the engines wouldn't actually generate thrust. That's the big, it's more just a fireball. And then once those two tests are done, we would expect the next step to be a static fire, which is actually starting the engines generate thrust for a couple seconds, and that's the last like full up engine and vehicle test that would precede any sort of launch, obviously. And that, as we talked about earlier, that static fire test isn't just about the engines, because again, those engines all get tested at McGregor before before they ship to even Starbase. But when you do it on the vehicle, you're testing the vehicle plumbing and the vehicle tanks. You're also testing all of the ground support infrastructure. So that gives you an idea of the difference between a static fire test on the vehicle and just testing the engines out in McGregor.
Also, just as a side note, because I know that is a timing that a lot of people, including me, watch, the engine vents started now about 8 minutes ago. So we are about 4 to 5 minutes away from that 12 to 13 minute mark that sometimes showed us action.
Sort
yeah,
of,
I mean,
ish.
This is I'm try to cover my base here a lot, but yesterday it was again kinda a good indicator, but for the booster test it was not. So it's weird. SpaceX is weird.
Fair enough. We'll try to keep some questions coming here. Travis has a good discussion question for us. Excuse me. Which booster do we think will be the first to fly twice? This is an interesting question, given that they haven't flown one once yet.
We should
okay,
wait.
Who wants
probably.
to start with this super easy question?
I mean, I don't even have a guess for this. I'm not even going to go there, so I'm not going to pressure either of you to make a guess.
I will say it's not the first 10. The first 10 that fly to orbit will not be reused. That's my prediction.
First 10. Huh.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take a little bit of time. Even Elon admitted that they don't want these boosters and ships to be recovered just yet, because it's just like he said, they're gonna be lawn ornaments on the rocket garden. Like, they're gonna be out there, and they are not made yet to be reused multiple times. These are like, just launch them, recover them, and once you recover them, you start recovering them, then you can actually go and check out the things that need to be refurbished for use and normal operations, and make it just like Falcon 9, or even better than Falcon 9.
Right. Another question, are we aware of any differences between Starship 20 and 24, except for, of course, Raptor 2 engines versus Raptor 1?
Well, we actually had a video about that, but I can summarize a few of the changes. For example, the construction method that they had for ship 20 is different now for ship 24. The barrel sections and things like that have changed. Ship 24 has a payload bay with the mailbox payload bay door, and what other things? Oh yeah, some of the vents. So it doesn't have cold gas thrusters. It uses tank vents to maneuver in space. instead of coal gas thrusters. Also, you can see some like 2 cowbell things there. Those are part of the thruster system that they have. Those are also new on Ship 24, and also it has the methane header tank instead of being on the
Oh,
oh,
that looked like a spin prime to me.
That was a spin
yeah,
prime.
that looked indeed.
Folks, if you just saw a full flow of vapors coming from the engine just a couple seconds ago, that is what we look for with a spin prime test. And there was no ignition.
I'm rewinding, and it looked again as 6 engines, same pattern.
All
3 and
6,
3.
yeah.
Yeah.
And look at that, all of the vapors from the GSE tanks have gone away.
Yeah, also it was exactly 12 minutes after the start of the engine vents.
Alright.
Yeah, this
Starting
was...
to see patterns.
Yep, that
the
was a spin
spreadsheet is
prime.
growing stronger.
Alright,
folks, so we just saw a spin prime test with Ship 24, the second such test for this vehicle. So that was nice and quick. We've only been live for like 25 minutes.
That was nice.
Now, of course, the testing window goes until what, like 10 p.m. Central Time?
Yeah, we can be here for another 9 hours, right?
So, the question is, are they done or not? Could do more spin prime testing, could move into something else, could test another test tank, who knows? But looks like they've completed 1 test so far, Ship 24 prime test. There you go.
Yeah, this also the process after the spin prime looks different to yesterday. If correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. But this is surprisingly calm right now. Interesting behavior from the ship. This is definitely a different procedure what they are doing compared to yesterday.
All right, we'll have to keep an eye on that. While we continue to keep an eye on Ship 24 and any continuing testing they may do, we still have a ton of questions and things to get through, so I'm going to try and do that. Alright, here's an interesting question regarding the orbital test flight. If Raptors failed to ignite for a deorbit burn, would they use the flight termination system or let it re-enter uncontrolled? Well, activating the FTS in low Earth orbit sounds like a bad idea to me. I don't know about y'all.
Yeah.
But I think it is safer to let it naturally decay.
Yeah, how to carpet bomb one place in the Earth, it sounds like. I feel like at that point they would probably try to use gas thrusters and maybe the flaps.
Right, that's true.
To just steer it to like some sort of water area. And yeah, like that sounds to me like what they would do. And
keep in mind, you don't need a lot of energy to deorbit from low Earth orbit. Like, even if only 1 Raptor ignited, you'd be able to deorbit. So, I think this is actually a pretty unlikely scenario to begin with. For which I think is the real mitigation to this whole thing. SpaceX does not need... SpaceX's system should be reliable enough to ensure a deorbit can happen.
And I'm sure even with the, I was talking before of the changes right before the spin prime test, and now they use the vents as thrusters, and I wonder even if just that could, like, you depress the tanks, and you use that as deorbit burn, sort of, like I wonder if that could be enough to even deorbit.
I mean, it's like the Dragon capsule doesn't use the Super Dracos to deorbit, it just uses the small Draco thrusters. That's pretty common.
Also, I want to point out a very different difference to yesterday's test. If you remember yesterday's test, we had a way more filled LOX tank. This is like basically nothing compared to yesterday. We were like a lot of rings in yesterday's test. This is only like the very, very little bottom.
Alright. Some more questions here. Van with a $20 super chat, thank you so much, who's asked, will we be able to see Starship in orbit from the ground like the International Space Station? My guess would be yes. I mean, some people you can even see, you can catch like a Falcon 9 upper stage in orbit, especially at least under the right lighting conditions. I think there was also, I mean, you could see the shuttle free flying, I think. So that is, I would imagine Starship will be visible. And John, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. Thank you so much. Here's a question from Owen. We haven't seen the chopsticks move very fast yet. Could we see them be testing them moving faster before any sort of catch attempt? Or is that the speed we would expect them to move for that?
I don't think they're gonna need them to move that fast. Otherwise, we will be seeing a lot of changes especially in the system of pulleys. You know, that move the arms up and down, which you can see at there on the back of the tower, right next to the bottom of ship 24. I think that will probably be a big change. I'm not sure if the current system might be able to do that, but hey, we'll see. As always, right?
Also, I want to correct something, because apparently I said multiple times that yesterday was the other spin prime test. It was, of course, Monday. I don't know what is wrongly wired in my head and just thinks it was yesterday, but apparently, yeah, I made that mistake multiple times. So I apologize. The spin prime test was Monday. Yesterday was the testing of B7.1. And don't listen to Germans.
Probably because yesterday was 7.1. It was boring. It's like, I eliminate from from brain.
just yeah, it's not a ship or a booster. Delete day.
Yeah.
Alright, another question here. Actually, Michael is telling me that we're going to queue up a replay real quick of the Ship 24 spin prime test. So if you're just joining us, here's the test that SpaceX conducted just a couple minutes ago. See it on the left-hand side. Obviously, the live view is on the right-hand side. As you can see, there's venting near the base of the vehicle. And right there, you can see the full flow of vapors from the actual engines themselves. You can see them coming out from the test stand there. So that is what we are describing as a spin prime test, and the propellant's actually flowing through the pumps of the Raptor engines. That was just, again, a couple minutes ago, 1:20 p.m. Central Time. And that is the second spin prime test they have conducted with Ship 24. The first was on Monday. Don't have any insight into what might be different, like why they had to repeat the test or chose to, but that is the second spin prime test and looked nominal from anything we could see.
I guess there's also
go
the...
ahead.
Oh. No, I was about to say, I guess it's also good to just get more data, right? That they might need some more data out of this.
Another question from JavaMan. Does Ship 24 have both LOX and methane header tanks in the nose cone?
Yeah, so that was actually what I was about to say when Ship 24 did the speed prime test. What I was saying was one of the changes that they did from Ship 20 to Ship 24, they removed the methane header tank from the common dome. It used to be at the bottom of the methane tank, which is at the common dome, and they removed that, and it's actually now on the nose cone. That was confirmed by Elon Musk. We don't know what shape it is or where in the nose cone it is, but it is likely to be close to the LOX one at the tip of the nose cone. So like the LOX tank, the LOX header tank at the nose cone is like a drop teardrop shape, you know, at the top, and then the other one we just don't know, the methane header tank. We haven't seen it yet, or if we have seen it, I don't think we recognized it as such.
Alright, gotcha. Thank you, Alex. Niall asking what was the time between the engine chill and the spin prime. We said it was 12 minutes, right, Adrian?
Yes, I have not exactly counted it to the second, but it was in a ballpark of 12 minutes-ish. It was very... Actually, I will just count it now, and you answer the next question, because I think
okay.
I think to know.
Well, while Adrian counts that, I do want to give another shout out to the NASA Spaceflight store, because you can still get your metal prints, and we're adding more stuff to the store all the time. Obviously, the metal prints are one of the newest additions with new photos. I think we added that booster go-around photo from Pauline out at the West Coast port. But of course, there's also Starship prints and an SLS print in there, and some Falcon 9 shots.
Very timely now with SLS.
Yeah, exactly. So SLS getting its launch date. So if you want to celebrate the August 29th launch date for Artemis 1, there's your SLS metal print. But really high quality, solid photos printed onto metal, and they look awesome. So if that is your thing and you're looking for some wall art, highly recommend. There you go. All right, Adrian, you got the count for the time from engine chill to spin prime. What was that?
The engine chill started at 1:09:04, and the spin prime was at 1:20:38:39-ish. So it was rough math, like 11 minutes and 35 seconds.
All right, there we go. Spreadsheet expert. Thanks.
With rough math here, so I'm not sure. Like I'm very bad at head counting. That's why I use spreadsheets, so I don't have to count in my head.
All right. So another super chat question here says, "Great work, guys. Any future plans for 4K streams?" I will say that we are always considering all possible areas of future improvement. Don't have any specific plans to share with anyone just yet, but we're always looking to improve our coverage in all sorts of different ways. So I think we'll just leave it at that, and we'll obviously share more when we have new stuff to show off. Another question here. Dane asking, are we aware of any plans to use Starship bodies to build a space station in orbit? I know it's been proposed by, like, non-SpaceX people. I don't know if SpaceX ever said they were going to do that, though.
I think it's always the problem, like, it's not that easy to build a long-sustaining space station, right? You have to consider a lot of things about long-term radiation protection, long-term being able to survive in orbit, and being protected against micro damage. So I'm not sure if the Starship is always the best case scenario to just use it, or if it's more a best case scenario to just launch a designated space station module with Starship. Because not always the design that is the best ship is the design that is the best space station.
Right, gotcha. Here is a good question from Rhynamo. Would they need to test the spin prime for both the main tanks and the header tanks, or would one spin prime test suffice for that? That is an interesting theory as to why they might do another spin prime test. Could they have just tested the header tanks?
Could be, yeah, to be able to test the same thing that they test with the main tanks. You could think that, hey, you know, we gotta test the plumbing to the engines from the header tanks. That makes sense, yeah.
But we saw all 6 engines get tested, right?
Well, nothing impedes them to have the header tanks plumbing going to the vacuum engines. So I think we actually saw I think it was ship 21. I think it was one of the recent ships that, you know, was scheduled to have vacuum engines, and I think I remember being like sort of taken away from the fact that I think the header tanks were actually going, like the plumbing were going into the vacuum engines, which made me be a little bit, you know, feeling a little bit weird there. But yeah, I don't know.
Because the point of the header tanks obviously is to hold the landing propellant, and we wouldn't expect the vacuum engines to be used for landing.
Yeah, but it's also not only the time. That's not only the. Let me rephrase that. Land and burn is not the only time at which ship could use the header tanks. It could use it, for example, at the end of the initial burn on orbit, or something like the orbit burn. Like, I can think of many other uses for the header tanks, just not for landing. As we saw, for example, on the hops, they used the header tanks towards the end of the burn, for example, when they were going up. So that could be a thing. Now, is it gonna be? I'm not saying that. Okay, so warning here. I'm not saying that that's gonna be the case, but I can see reasons why that could be a thing.
All right. Ninja says, any guess at how many tiles Ship 24 will lose during the campaign? Has it lost any yet?
Oh, that's actually an interesting topic to talk about, because looking at the heat shield on the right side right now, at least so far, I feel like it's holding up pretty well. Of course, we are still in the very early testings, and it's not static fires yet, but so far, I think it looks good. And we also saw in previous ships that sometimes during cryo tests already they started to lose some tiles. So yeah, maybe they are getting better at it. And yeah, so far I cannot spot big chunks of tiles missing or something like that.
Rough Riders, thank you for the support. We were just talking about the header tank discussion there. Not entirely sure that's what's going on, but it's an interesting idea. Flo says, Adrian, I'm disappointed. Go and watch The Fifth Element now. Well, not now. He's on stream. When we're done streaming, then he can go watch Fifth Element.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes I really have it on my list. I really have it on my list. I noticed the feedback of several people at this point that apparently I should watch that movie. Also, Alex, you have not seen it as well, right?
I have not, but I have seen Contact.
Oh yeah, the list of movies Adrian hasn't seen is problematic. Contact's like a big one.
Yeah.
I'm also getting another PM from Jack right now. It says, do it.
Do it.
Adrian, have you seen The Martian or Interstellar?
Yes. You know what?
What about? I'm trying to think of all the new space movies. Gravity.
No, but you know why I watched Interstellar? Because Hans Zimmer did the soundtrack.
That's true. Hans Zimmer soundtracks, 10 out of 10. And Gravity's problematic from a realism point of view. Anyway, this is not a movie stream. We've got more Starship questions.
That was Monday's stream. Go to Monday's stream.
Yeah,
I'm very aware how Monday's stream went.
Says the person who assigned these commentators.
Yeah, here we are. We got let's see. Oh yeah, a question. We have seen the tri-engine vent. Are there 3 ends or 3? Oh my goodness, I can't speak. Let's try this sentence one more time. Are there 3 vents on Ship 24? It's kind of the same sort of tri-vent we've seen on previous vehicles, right?
Yes, but it seems they changed the layout of the vent, and it's now just 2 vents below the flaps.
Right. So it's the same kind of idea, but it's a different number. They're in a different spot. It's only 2. So, can't call it a tri-vent. A bi-vent, I guess?
Yeah.
The bi-vent. A flap vent.
Flat vent. There we go. I like it. Again, for those just joining us, we already saw a spin prime test occur, but the vehicle is still prop loaded. You see a frost line on the LOX tank, still venting from the engine section. So, all of those things considered, definitely still an active situation. Could see some more spin prime testing or something. Have to keep an eye on it, so we'll just keep asking questions in the meantime. Oh, okay. Question from Corey. Why does the top of the nose look frosty over the tiles? Well, when you first asked that question, I thought that might be an indication that the header tanks are prop loaded. But I think you're actually just seeing the tip of the nose cone is a different color. That's not frost, I don't think, right?
No, that's
Like
part
that
of
was there
the
before they prop
blue.
loaded.
Yeah, that's part of the residuals, like the residue that's left over on the tiles from gluing those tiles at the tip of the nose cone. It's not actually like you can see on the right side of the screen here, the right side camera. You see on the left there's a frost ring right on the LOX tank, but now on the right you don't see any frost. That's
Right.
because the TPS it's actually not a thermal conductor. That's actually what you want, right? to not conduct the temperature all the way into the vehicle. So it's actually not having any sort of uh, frost on the outside. And that's kind of the whole deal. At the top of the nose cone, the tip of the nose cone is the same thing. You don't see any frost, and you don't see like you wouldn't see any frost from any of the header tanks because all of them are just gonna be covered with the TPS, no matter what. And so, yeah, you won't see any frost for header tanks, one way or another, whether they are filled or not. Obviously, if they are not, you don't see. But you know what I mean, right? There you go.
All right. And then let's see, B with a 20 euro super chat, no message, but just saying thanks, so appreciate it. Neil asking, how come we never seen spin prime test on older starships? Pretty sure we have, didn't we?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
we've seen many, even on
Right.
Starhopper, I believe.
Yeah, Starhopper days we saw spin prime test. I remember
Yeah.
that too. So, Neil, we definitely saw. This is not a particularly new test. This has been done on previous vehicles as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yehuda, I believe, asking, do we think the engines will fire up today? Probably not. There's not been an overpressure notice, which SpaceX is still required to give, at least according to the latest language from the FAA reports, the environmental assessment and things. They're still required to provide an alert if an overpressure event risk is present, and that would include a pre-burner or a static fire test. So, based on how testing has gone with the previous campaigns, we're still expecting that to come out before any sort of engine fire up. It has been a while, so things could change, but that's the expectation. And on that same topic, chat pointing out that we did see them do an igniter test earlier. So that does feed into speculation that maybe they could go that way. But again, that wouldn't really align with the most probable expectation, we don't think. Tin Man does want to know if there's any shuttle metal prints on the way. I think we're going to have to add some shuttle prints to the metal prints on the shop. That would be a good endeavor. Pretty good addition.
Chris B will probably be very, very happy. And if
yeah,
it is
so
Endeavor,
we'll have to
as
get on
the
that.
comment says, I'll be very happy too.
I know
We'll
Chris G
definitely
would
buy
be happy with an Endeavor edition. Chris B would insist on Atlantis, but as we all know, Columbia is the best shuttle, so we'll just go with that.
I think
See, Chris G is the one with
definitely-
good taste.
I think we should definitely point out that the vehicle is still holding its pressure.
Right, it has not been
Because-
depressurized.
No,
we didn't see like the full depress vents we have observed Monday, for example. It seems like this vehicle is very much just in a pattern, and maybe they are reviewing data, maybe they are preparing a second test. We don't know, but yeah, for sure, they are not moving yet into saving and clearing this vehicle.
Let's see. VFM with a question: how would the ship's flight plan change if the vacuum-optimized engines failed? Do we think could Starship like limp to orbit if it was only firing the 3 sea level engines? Obviously, it'd be less efficient. But is that enough thrust? I have a feeling that you need more than 3 Raptors worth of thrust.
well, I guess it depends, right? Like, if your payload is not too big enough, I guess you could probably spend some of that performance on getting out, sort of like Centaur. Remember one flight? I think it was Cygnus OA7. I think it was where the booster
On
shut down
Atlas, right?
because Yeah, on an Atlas V, the booster shut down like 7 seconds earlier or thereabouts, a few seconds earlier than it should, and the Centaur was carrying a Cygnus on top. So, and for the configuration it was flying on, it was actually almost near the limit on performance, so to speak. And you can see the graphics. They are live telemetry graphics, and you can see the Cygnus just pointing up almost vertically just to get out of the dip because it was going down.
Right.
I think the frost is slightly increasing. If you go back 20 minutes, it looks like the frost loses like significantly force, and even on the right side you can see it rose since 20 minutes. So it looks like to me that it more is in the increasing than in the decreasing, or at least it feels like way. If you just go back 20 minutes, it feels way less powerful, the frost, compared to now.
Right, and so the reason we're keeping an eye on that frost wing, for anyone who might just be tuning in, we already saw a spin prime test happen, like the ticker says, 1:20 p.m. local time, so about 26 minutes ago. But they have not depressurized the vehicle. Like Adrian said, the frost might be increasing a little bit. Still plenty of vapors from that engine section, which would suggest that engine chill is still happening. Also, I saw a question earlier what the difference between engine chill and spin prime was. Engine chill is like dripping locks through the engine, like it's not really flowing, the pumps aren't running. All you're doing is getting a little bit of locks through the engine to help cool down the engine components. A spin prime is actually activating the pumps and getting those propellants flowing at a rate that it would if you were going to start the actual engines. So that's a difference. But right now, yeah, the vehicle is still very active, which is why we're hanging around, because they could go for another spin prime test. They could go into some sort of other testing. Again, we think a pre-burner would be unlikely based on no overpressure notice, and as skeptical as we are, because plans always change all the time, we have never seen them do a pre-burner test without a overpressure notice, so we're still holding and hoping that that's still the case. But yeah, testing not done, clearly, so that's why we're still here. I'll bring some more questions, though. Alright, I'm gonna throw this question to y'all. Y'all can have fun with this one. How far into the future do you think it will be before warp drive nacelles are added to Starship?
Oh boy!
Can I just say never, because I think that would be a fully different designed vehicle that has nothing to do with Starship?
Will at least be a Will SpaceX develop warp drive at some point? What are we thinking?
I love these easy questions of yours, give us, that we are totally capable of answering.
Don't make me go into places that you don't want me to go. I'll say never. Warp drive doesn't exist. There you go.
I don't think so either.
And you won't move me out of that.
Really quick, we have had two very generous pieces of support come through. First of all, Christopher Marlor with a Launch Director membership. So thank you so much, Christopher, for the support. That is super, super helpful to help us keep doing what we do. But also Tom Cray with a $100 super chat. Tom, no message or anything, so all I'm going to say is thank you so much, Tom, for the support. Really do appreciate that. Again, we can't do what we do without the support of anyone who tunes in, sends us messages, sends us super chats, sends us memberships. All those things are so helpful. It's hard to understand. It's hard for us to properly describe how helpful all of these things are. So, Tom and Christopher, thank you both so much. We've got a whole bunch of other super chat supports coming in through, and some of these are questions. Malik asking, will it be necessary to do a static fire from the header tanks as well? In the past, they have done both, right? I don't know how necessary it is, but it's something we've seen them do in the past, so that's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adrian.
I mean, it's always the question, what do they want to test? Do we want to test the vehicle and the tank flow and everything, or do they want to test the engine configuration at the bottom? If they only want to go with the second one, they don't need multiple static fires. But if they want to also verify the plumbing of like the header tanks and the whole process of using the header tanks, then it might be worth to do that.
All right. I was gonna say B with a super chat that says Happy Moon Day. It is Happy Moon Day to everyone else. The anniversary of the Apollo 11 landing. So,
in about 2 hours.
In about 2 hours from now. But thank you for the support there. Let's see here. Doc Watson says, Adrian, can you name 5 elements, and if so, what would be the 5th?
I mean, at this point, yes, I can name 5 elements, but I will not answer this question further.
It'll be a recurring theme, I think.
Yes.
Space Shuttle Discovery says, forget Falcon Heavy, Vulcan, Neutron, Terran R, Ariane 6, even Starship. Eco Rocket Heavy is the future. Good jokes. Also, I'm the best shuttle. Also a good joke.
That,
yeah.
Geez.
And that's all the attention I'm going to give that message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me Lorenzo says, only 2.2 thousand likes with 9.4 thousand viewers? That can't be right. You know, all I'm saying is there is that thumbs up button below the stream, and if you click that button, some cool things can happen. We get some more people hanging out with us and help share the stream. So I'll just you know, throw that out there. Hit the like button if you want. Don't want to pressure anybody, but we do appreciate it if you do.
If
really
you
quick,
like more a person that likes Shuttle will appear on the stream.
There you go. You know, speaking of the shuttle, folks, I believe we do have someone joining commentary for our continuing coverage of Ship 24 testing. Chris Gebhardt, assistant managing editor for NASA Spaceflight. Chris, you with us?
I am indeed. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Chris. Thanks for hopping on. We're just doing a quick rotation. I'm going to come off the stream and make sure we're ready for some other coverage coming out, because we've got some cool spaceflight events happening later this week. And I'm going to hand off some commentary to Chris, and he'll hang out with Adrian and Alex for, again, this is continuing coverage of Ship 24 testing. Don't go anywhere, because SpaceX doesn't appear to be done. But Chris, thanks for hopping on, and enjoy the show.
I will indeed. Thanks for starting us off, Thomas, and happy to jump on in here as we continue to cover Ship 24 engine testing. It's done a thing already, as I understand, right, Adrian or Alex?
Yes.
Yeah.
It performed a spin prime, and right now, basically, we see like frost lines, like vertical frost lines rising. I don't know if this is the effect of depressuring or if this is them filling it up more, but there's definitely frost going up.
Nice. So what do we think that means then in terms of testing? Have we sort of seen that before? Is that indicative of something we saw with Ship 24 last time with the booster before it did its unexpected "Hello, I'm here" announcement with its engine, shall we say? Oh, well, don't all yell at once. That must have been a great question. Like, as a former teacher used to say, oh, come on, questions, comments, cries of joy. Like,
yeah, I would say we saw them holding a pattern and a test before. Usually what happens is they hold this for a long time and then suddenly we see the depress vent. But sometimes they kind of recycle and go into a second flow. So we saw them before, basically keeping the vehicle very solid for a very long amount of time, especially on the earlier prototypes like SN8, SN9, SN15. These had these behaviors more often. So yeah, we are kind of clueless what they want to do now and what the future of this test is, but at least for now we can say this seems like it's not done. I would feel confident at this point to at least call that it's kind of holding. They're not depressuring as we speak.
Ah, gotcha. And I purposely said gotcha because I do love I do love what what Yehuda is saying here, just saying indeed. My catchphrase is indeed, because that is apparently the word that I really default to in saying. But I'm sure on text messaging, a lot of others can confirm that gotcha is also what I default to there. So I like that for the indeed fun. Indeed, indeed, indeed. And Alan saying here, since Adrian, since you just answered this, if you weren't going to answer a question, would that be pleading the Fifth Amendment, not element? A nice little U.S. political joke there. And also, I've been told to make sure that Mark, your boss, schedules a viewing of the Fifth Element at work for you.
Oh my God, this is my lack of knowledge about this movie is spreading basically everywhere.
Well, you know, it happens. No. Hey, you know, like, it took me a while to see some pretty famous movies too, but yeah,
well,
you know, when you're ready to see them, you're ready to see them.
It so far took me long to see basically every famous movie, it seems, but
well, you know,
getting there.
The value of having older friends is we'll rectify that for you. But
that's true.
But Anonymous Vibester, welcome to the fun. Thank you for the Pad Rat membership. Thank you very much for that continued support. And Craig for Red Team membership as well. Thank you both so much for that ongoing support. That really does help us not just keep the lights on and all that, but it really keeps helping us to bring you new things, to make sure that everything's ready for the orbital test flight. You know, that big thing that we're all waiting for, right? You know, big shiny rocket go skyward. But thank you so much. That really does help us, and it really does mean a lot. And I know sometimes that can seem insincere. That sort of thank you can seem insincere, but we really do mean it from all of us at NSF. Thank you. Big help and big support. Thank you. The Space Shuttle Discovery is chiming in. Oh boy, after we mentioned Atlantis and Endeavour, I hope it has nice things to say.
Look at that
30-minute video breakdown on why they're the best shuttle. Well, you know, I mean, if we did that for you, we'd have to do it for all the shuttles. Like, no. No, I joke. They were all gorgeous beauties. What were you saying there, Adrian or Alex?
Look at that frost. Look at these vertical lines climbing up the LOX tank.
It kind of reminds me.
Interesting.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the frost that appears when they detank the tank, and it looks like, you know, because of the detank, they just the tank just comes turns colder. Excuse me. Yeah, it just looks that kind of frost that we usually see when that happens. It's weird.
Isn't it called like Leidenfrost? No, that's not the effect. What's the one where you depressure something gets cold? What's the effect? That also has a name.
Isn't that the Joule effect or something? I don't know. I did that, you know, in college, and I've studied that, but I wasn't the best in thermodynamics.
Well, you know, I mean, thermodynamics, I mean, it's just hot and cold, right? I mean, it's that easy, right? No, kidding. It's not. I do not make light of science, no. But I mean, yeah, like, those frost lines are very interesting. Like, what does it sort of indicate is going on the inside of the vehicle there? Do we have an idea? Like, I mean, because it's a very different ring that's forming, right? I mean, or it's a very different pattern that's forming aside from the ring.
Yet it doesn't look like they are really filling up the liquid in it, because you can still see a very clear line where it seems to be that there is the liquid in this tank, the liquid oxygen, and it doesn't seem like it's really raising, because before you could see when they fill it up, you could really see this frost line, this concentrated frost line going up the tank. This looks more like condensation climbing up the tank on the outside, and like cold gas or something forming in there. So this could also be related to like boiling in the tank, and that gas is forming now that the liquid is changing to gas form. So this looks not like they are filling in liquid. That's
Gotcha.
what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. All right. Here's a good question. Has anyone counted how many tiles Ship 24 has now?
I don't think we have counted them one by one.
Okay. Well, we'll have to get in touch with Ian and give him some homework for tonight.
There's a rough count, which is 17,000 to 18,000, if I remember correctly.
Okay, fewer
That's
than the
a rough
Shuttle had.
count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Shuttle had about 24,000. For those of you who are going, oh well, Chris, you can't just say less than. It had about 24,300, depending on the orbiter you were looking at.
About, and he almost gives a super precise number.
I mean, I tried. And 17 to 18,000 on ship. So definitely less than with the orbiter. Of course, the orbiter had to have a lot of its surface covered in thermal protection system, whereas this ship does not. So that is good. So here's another good question from Jackster Max. Is that just Jack trying to get a question in? No, it's someone else. But Jackster Max asking if they get Starship up and running, are the Falcon 9s and Falcon Heavies deemed obsolete?
That's a hard question to answer because there's many, but anyone can go and say, but this and that. So no, as soon as Starship goes operational, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy are not deemed obsolete in the sense of, oh yeah, they stop flying. But you could say they are deemed obsolete in the sense of technology. Now, is it really obsolete until you at least reuse them? Because, for example, Falcon 9 is reusable, but you can still fly Starship and be revolutionary and everything, because of the technology and all, even though it might not be reused. Because it is already a big rocket with new kind of engine and cycle and propellants. Like, you have all of these new things going on that cool in theory, you could say, oh well, it already deems Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy obsolete in that sense, I guess. Now, if you go one step ahead and you're like, well, until they're reused, they're not obsolete or something like that, because Falcon 9 was the first one that was reusable and all of that. You can get nitpicky with these things. That's my whole point.
But who doesn't love to be nitpicky in this industry?
Oh yeah, and
I mean, we all do.
Chat is like, oh, you're wrong because of this, or yeah, you're right because of that.
Because we're all passionate, right? That's what I love about it. That's what I love about chat. That's what I love about our community, right? It's like, we love this. We take it so seriously that this stuff is very important to us in that regard. And yeah, definitely.
Also, I want to pitch into this question because I actually discussed this with a few other space people earlier today regarding the Falcon Heavy launch manifest. Because if you look at the planned mission that Falcon Heavy has, these are not missions that are easy to move. These are not missions you just can ask the customer, hey, want to fly another other rocket. They are like USSF missions. They are Psyche. They are Roman Space Telescope now. Europa Clipper, Gateway. These are very special payloads with mostly very special vibrations and G forces profiles in there. So I doubt that these payloads will be easy to move to a Starship because they are so expensive and built that it really doesn't matter for the customer if they pay 250 million or 80 million for the launch, because they already paid billions for the payload.
Yeah. Very true.
You're right. Very
true. And Turbo Green, thanks so much for the support. No question, just support. Thank you very much. Badger57, thank you so much for becoming a Pad Rat member. That continued sustained support is really appreciated. And just as a reminder, Capcom and above gives you access to our Discord. So if you like all of this banter that you hear on screen and want it 24/7 in your life, you can join our Discord and get all of that good stuff too. And another good question here, not pertaining to the booster that this ship on screen right now is set to launch on, right? So Ship 24, which we're watching right now in a spin prime test, or that it did a spin prime test earlier today, is slated to be paired with Booster 7 for the inaugural, ooh, that word is harder to say than I thought, test flight, an orbital flight of Starship. But the next booster in line, booster number 8, when will it be ready for its campaign, is the question that Benjamin Klein is wondering.
You wanna hit that, Adrian?
Yeah, I can. So these prototypes are getting more and more complicated. If you look at early boosters and early ships, they were very much ready after stacking. They were basically, as soon as they finished stacking, they had not that much to do anymore. With these vehicles, we now see a lot of very complicated parts, like chimes, like Raptor protections, added to these vehicles that are still taking time after stacking. So yes, Booster 8 now is basically stacked. It is stacked. It is not ready if we compare it to Booster 7's timeline. It takes about, like, this is just a feeling, of course. I cannot underline this with super deep knowledge, but I feel like that Booster 8 would still be about a month away before it could start really its test campaign. So it's not like it's done. It still has work to do.
Gotcha. And Agro Nerd is asking us, are the 6 tiles at the top of Ship 24 another tile test, or just for aesthetic purposes, being next to the logo?
Oh, we get.
So I think we mean the ones right under the X, right? Like just to help people orient what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's a common question, and some of the one of the answers I usually give is that we don't know, but we have a good guess from Elon himself, which, you know, on Tim's video, the interviews, one of them, he points to the nose cone of Ship 24 and he's like, hey, what is that for? And he points to those, it was back then just without the black thing on top. It was like the whatever is underneath. And he said, yeah, those are, like Elon said, those are antennas or sensors or something like that. Like, he said something along those lines, that it was antennas or sensors or something. He didn't give a straight answer, but, you know, that's our answer too. Antennas, sensors, something along those lines.
Excellent. Although I like, I do like what Musical Wolves is saying in a follow-up one. The 6 tiles on Ship 24 are to remember the shuttles, 1 tile per orbiter. Yes. And then Dan saying, is the Indeed tick in me due to Stargate, SG-1, and Talik? As much as that would make Adrian's absolute life, no, it is not. If you had to ask me to rank them in personal preference, it would be Star Trek, Star Wars, Stargate. Moving right along, since I'm the host. No, sorry, Adrian, in rebuttal.
You managed to make the exact. You managed to make the exact opposite order of I would do, because I would rank them Stargate, Star Wars, and I haven't seen Star Trek.
Someone mute him. He hasn't seen Star Trek. No. No. All good. Casper saying, thanks for all the great coverage. Just bought some metal prints. Hope they live up to all the hype. Oh my gosh, they really do. They really do. I remember before I got the first metal print, I was like, oh, everyone keeps talking about a metal print. I guess I'll get one. And I thought, oh, that's kind of expensive, but I'll still get it. And oh my gosh, when it arrived, I was like, oh, I get it. I get why they're awesome. So yeah, no, you will not be disappointed. No.
I'm also getting backed up by the managing editor of NASA Spaceflight that Stargate indeed is amazing. Just to point that out.
I think you're making that up. I don't see that in Control Center anywhere. No.
No, but it's in the chat.
Oh, in chat. I see. But yes. So another good question from Xenon here in chat asking, now that Spin Prime was successful, is static fire next? And I guess it's a bit of a question mark. We not necessarily sure that Spin Prime was successful, just that they have done a Spin Prime on Ship 24 again today, correct?
Yes. We since we are not really getting an update on the by SpaceX if a test was successful, we always can just speculate. But usually we can kind of get indications if a test was correct. For example, what we always, or close to always see in when we later know that a test wasn't successful, is a very quick detank. We had that in a lot of tests, especially like pre-burners and spin primes, when they and static fires. When there was something going wrong, we had like very quick detanks and basically them saving a vehicle. So I doubt they would, if there was any big doubt about this test and they were like, oh, this maybe damaged our vehicle, I doubt they would take this long to just hold it. Because it still looks to me like they have control about this vehicle, because it's still like inventing patterns and everything, but they're still not really detanking it. So I doubt they would do that if there was any concern about the state of the vehicle.
The frost is growing.
Yes, the frost is definitely growing.
It must be a very, very good test today then, if they haven't done the detank yet.
And also from Eugene saying, finally I can say thank you for your work, guys. I've been a member since the SN3 failure. When do you think the first NTR engine will fly?
Oh, the NTR engine? That's the nuclear thermal something? What's the R? It does seems like it is about nuclear engines, right? I believe there's already being
nuclear thermal rocket, right?
Oh, okay. The R is for rocket. See, that makes sense. I believe there's already been nuclear engines before, especially I think from the Soviet Union or something like that, or perhaps just a reactor alone. See, that's where my memory becomes fuzzy, because I do remember things, but not the entire history of the thing. So yeah, I will have to look it up. But yeah, I believe DARPA is actually funding some research on nuclear engines. There's obviously different types of nuclear engines. I'm not gonna be going into that either. But yeah, nuclear engine research is actually ongoing right now. So potentially by the end of the decade, we'll see some of those going into space.
Indeed. And you know what? Chris K just gifted 20 Red Team memberships to folks who are watching the stream right now but are not currently members. So you know what? If you did get one of those gifted memberships, tag us and let us know in chat. We always like to see who is the beneficiary of those memberships. But Chris K, thank you so much. And yeah, if you did get one of those memberships, let us know. Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Also,
that's amazing.
Here, Chris K is also one of our Starbase Live operators that control cameras here, and shoutouts to not only him but the whole team of operators that operate these cameras on a daily basis, because they are amazing. And yes, a lot of love for them.
Yeah, we have a lot of people out there helping us in some shape or form, and that's amazing. They do such a great job.
Yes.
Oh, they really do. I mean, a shout out to all of our team, but both the ones that you hear and see all the time, and to all the folks who aren't seen, like our editors, our writers, everyone who's a part of NASA Spaceflight. This is truly a massive team endeavor for all the different operations that this organization does every single day, from live coverage to curated video content to the articles to oh my gosh, making sure everything's in place for a launch that still isn't even this calendar month. Like, yes, it really is a massive team effort. And Chris K is definitely one of those people who help us keep doing everything that we do. So thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Some people are pointing out Nerva in chat. I do know Nerva. I know about that one. It didn't fly. That's my whole point. The question was about flying a nuclear engine. Tests on the ground are great, and there's actually some videos out there of Nerva firings. They are amazing. Those were on the ground, not in space. What I was wondering is actually the Soviet one. That was actually a reactor, not the actual. So the reactor to power the engine was flown multiple times to test that part, but not the engine itself. That wasn't flown. There you go.
There you go.
Just,
oh yeah, go ahead, Adrian. Yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
I just want to update on the frost ring situation. Before you go.
Yeah,
on
please
the
do. Yeah.
there.
I mean, I guess we should talk about what's on screen too every once in a while, right?
Yes.
I mean,
so basically, the same situation we had 10 minutes ago is still the same. We still have a very constant frost ring. You can see it below the hatch. That you can. It's kind of hard to see at this point because there's all this condensation above it. But you can see still a significant frost ring at the bottom, and above that is these vertical going condensation. That is increasing, while the bottom layer, this frost ring, stays kind of the same. So I kind of stick with my ongoing prediction that this is the liquid oxygen that starts to boil inside the tank, and then basically the gases, the still cold gases, go up the tank and start to condensate the outside of the tank. That's what I suspect here, but I have not the physical deep knowledge to underline it.
There we have it. And you know what? We did have a couple of you tell us that you got a membership from Chris K, but I really want to highlight this one in particular. Ricardo saying massive thanks to Chris K for the membership and a massive thanks to you guys. I've been loving the coverage and have dedicated a TV in my office to your live streams. Thank you, Ricardo. That makes my heart so happy. Thanks again so much. Well, thank you, Ricardo, and thank you for being... thank you for just watching the stream, watching those ads. I know they're annoying at the beginning, and I know we all can't wait to hit skip, but those ads really do help us too. So thank you. And speaking of Paul Mason gifting another 10 Red Team membership. So thank you so much, Paul. Again, I mean, 30 new members just randomly for people who are watching but not already members. Thank you so much, Paul. That really means a lot. And to Aaron, who became a PadRat member, and also to Eugene, who became a PadRat member. Thank you so much. That really, I know that can seem like hollow words, but they really do mean a lot to us. And thank you. I know somewhere Jack is listening, and he's doing happy high voice Jack, and you've made Jack very happy. So thank you. Alrighty, well, there's so many questions. We see them all coming in. We're still adding them to the queue. I promise you. I know our furthest one is 37 minutes behind, so I'm going to get to that one right now. Tony Blue asking, and I guarantee you the way this question begins is not where you think it's headed. With SLS scheduled for the end of August, dun dun dun, yes, August 29th, in case nobody heard. August 29th is the earliest target date they have on the Eastern Range for SLS's Artemis 1 flight. So the question we have from Tony Blue is, with SLS scheduled for the end of August, is there a possibility of having both SLS and a Falcon 9, or Falcon Heavy rather, stacked at the Cape? And I brought this question up specifically because I'm pretty sure a lot of people also have questions about the Falcon Heavy manifest. So what do we think? With the news today that SLS is indeed targeting a penciled-in date of August 29th, do we have a shot of seeing a Falcon Heavy on neighboring Pad A?
I don't like to be the bringer of kinda non-optimistic news. But so far, the only mission that would fit this criteria is Viasat 3. That would be net September. That Falcon Heavy would be basically fly net September. What I'm a bit worried about this mission is it's net September. It's kind of not really locked in. It's a bit like Falcon Heavy has proven so far this year that it's a bit slippery. And I feel like this might be another case where if SLS really goes end of August, it might just miss Falcon Heavy. But we will see.
Yeah, and I think a good thing to point out here is that to all of the available information that's out there, the delays are not Falcon Heavy related, but rather the payloads they are intended to take to orbit. Because a very interesting thing that we saw here was that a lot of the classified missions for the National Reconnaissance Office, as soon as the Russian invasion of Ukraine happened, all of a sudden a lot of those just got delayed. So that was a really interesting thing that could be coincidental, but it's the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office. You know, there's good argument to be made there that has something to do. So it is worth noting that that's largely because of the payloads, not the rocket itself on that one. And with that, we actually have a bit of a comms change really quick. Alex is stepping away for a few minutes here. So we are going to bring in the one and only, and this is honestly to prove for all of you that we are not the same person. Oh, I thought, what? Does that message not say I will be out for a few minutes? Okay.
Yeah, a few minutes. That meant
a few minutes
a
was
couple
done.
of them.
Okay, well, the person speaking is not the person whose title card is on the screen right now. But I was going to say, regardless of Alex's status, we have the one and only Chris Bergen on, just to prove that we're not the same person. So, Chris, how you doing?
To be fair, that card works because when Alex was talking, he's from Spain. And our weather has been so hot recently, you wouldn't believe. It's been like Spain. Just making sure I was getting that in straight from the start, because we do like to complain about the weather. But apart from that, speaking of the frosty weather, looks like Ship 24 has gone through the Spin Prime test by the look of things. So that's second test of Spin Prime. And I did see a question asking what's next. Well, next should be pre-burner.
Yeah.
But do we think they'll do it in this test window without a notice? Or do we think they'll go for a notice maybe tonight and then I'll point to a Spin Prime? Is there a window tomorrow?
Well, I guess that's a good question.
Yes.
How long does the test window go tonight?
The test window goes tonight to 10 p.m. and there's another window tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And about if they want to go for a pre-burner, as we kind of mentioned before in the stream, basically every regulatory thing we know points into the direction of no, but also basically every other thing we know about how they conduct these tests and what's next kind of points into the direction of maybe. So it's a situation where we are not sure what 100% is the procedure at this point, and yeah, we basically want to point out stuff is possible, but we don't know what is possible because SpaceX didn't give us an exact flowchart.
As much as we asked for it, no.
Yeah, it would be great if we actually got that.
Well, look, this is where we are. This is where we stand. The testing Ship 24, they were hoping to have Booster 7 tested probably before Ship 24. Maybe. I say in a high-pitched voice. I don't know where my voice got very high-pitched, but
that was good, though.
Yeah, with the incident with its own Spin Prime test on Booster 7, it's now back at the production site inside the Mega Bay next door to Booster 8, and there's also parts of Booster 9 being stacked in there. So it's now an intriguing thing of what will leave the Mega Bay next. Will it be Booster 7 with its replaced engines and repair job or whatever it's been done, or will it be Booster 8? What do we think, guys? It's speculation because we don't know, but let's speculate.
So the options are a repaired 7, a rushed, not a rush, but like an advanced 8 or 9. Okay,
correct.
I'm gonna go with a repaired 7. I guess I'm not seeing anything yet that would lead me to believe that there's enough they would need to repair that they would just either scrap it or swap it. But Could be wrong, but that's what I'd go with.
Pat was correct by saying, let's do a poll. Sorry, you go on, I'll do a poll while you're talking.
Okay, I will rule out 9.
Time.
I will rule out 9 because I think they would go for 8 before they go for 9. Because I don't see a reason why they would skip 8 yet. It's hard. Like, it's one of these. My heart says one, my brain says another. But my heart says B7 because I would wish they would recover it. But something in me and like my idea how they will work and the fact that Booster 8 is stacked and they are now working on the fine details. Something in me tells me it might be 9. Might be 8. I go with 8. I think the next booster they'll leave the Mega Base 8.
You can tell I can't multitask because my poll is now active and I managed to add an extra Q at the end. Bit of a Star Trek reference there, Chris.
An extra Q, always the bane of a captaincy.
Yeah. But I think everyone gets the idea of that question, that poll. It'd be a quick poll, so it'd be a flash poll to see what we think. But so far, in the first nearly 800 votes, we've got 77% going with the repaired Boost 7. So I think everyone's in that same mindset where we saw the transfer tube that was squashed. We all thought, oh, that's the end of Boost 7, they're going to go into Boost right now. And lo and behold, Boost 7 was repaired and rolled back out. So we may be in the same situation now where Boost 7's gone back again for more repairs, but it may yet be rolled out again. My personal feeling is they'll go with Boost 7 because it's almost a free booster now if you think about it. If they were going to scrap it, that's just a waste. I mean, they'll take the engines out, so it wouldn't be too bad. But if I was Elon, I wish I had his money, but if I was Elon, I would personally think, well, hang on a minute. If we do a bit of repairing on Boost 7, get it into a state where we think it's good enough for testing, we'll do some big stress testing out at the launch site. And if it goes wrong, it's no loss, we've got booster rate ready to go. If it's all going very well, and it seems to be really proving its worth, hey, let's put Ship 24 on top.
Another Spin Prime, look at that.
Wow. Does that mean I've got to do a recorded clip with me talking? Oh, God.
Yes.
Hang on, I'm gonna do it with the volume down. I don't care.
He's just gonna label. He's just gonna put Chris G's voice. I was gonna say blame the spelling mistake on me. I mean, you've all seen my Twitter feed for that one.
Last one was when I was talking.
but actually, Adrian and Alex, I did want to sort of ask you, like, did those both to you look like full 6-engine Spin Primes that they are indeed doing the sea levels and the Raptor vacs as well?
That was precisely
vacs
what
meaning vacuums.
What I was doing.
Ah, good.
Yeah,
good.
I was rewinding to see the test again.
The first one looked like 6
munching.
to me.
So yeah, it looked to me another.
Yeah.
If you follow me on Twitter, and if you don't, then why? I'm gonna put the Twitter in. Hang on. Hang on. I think I've got a command for it. 1 second. Let's try that. See if it comes up. People always say sometimes because YouTube notifications are a bit iffy. Sometimes I think for everybody. If you follow our Twitter account, I'm going to say our Twitter account. It's not my Twitter account. It's our Twitter account. I obviously will always tweet when there's either a live stream coming up, or a live stream event coming up, or if there's an actual event during the live stream, like the Spin Prime test just there. Both are being tweeted, so you'll never miss a test, and you'll always be kept up to date with what's happened. So that's my recommendation. People who say, I didn't get a notification. You did a live stream, didn't get a notification. That's YouTube's fault. So follow on Twitter. Again, if you're on Twitter, I assume, and you'll always get a notification that way.
Alex, I think you see the same as I. This looked like another Spin Prime test with 3 engines first and then 3 later, right?
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, so this is another that is very close and similar to the previous static fires we have seen. They first ignited. They first spin primed 3 engines and then added a second set of 3 engines. So yeah, this looked like 6-engine Spin Prime.
And I want to hit a question here that actually just came in really quick from Alan. And I know there's so many questions in the queue. We still got them and we're still going through them. But I do just want to hit this because a lot of you I know cycle in and out. And we just want to make sure that everyone's sort of aware of what we're watching for today. So this was we just saw the second Spin Prime test of the day. Both of them, as Adrian and Alex were just saying, looked like 6-engine engines, the full 6 engine spin primes on the base of the ship. But the question specifically from Alan, Adrian or Alex, is referencing the external frost, and he's saying that that just looks like it is increasing. So can we sort of explain again for those who are just joining us, why is that frost ring not uniform? Why is it not a ring, basically? Because we keep calling it a ring, so but it's not. Why does that look different, and what do we think is happening there? Or what do we know is happening there?
So at this point, it's basically impossible to see, but at the bottom of this whole LOX tank, there is one layer of frost ring that is at the bottom. Above that, it seems like it's more condensation that is going up, that is just increasing over time. But one big indicator that I'm watching all the time right now is if the hatch starts heavily bleeding these condensations, because we saw that in previous tests. If the LOX ring goes above the hatch, it does that a bit. It's like very faint right now, but it was that for like an hour now, almost an hour. So that indicates to me that the liquid LOX ring is kind of double. The LOX ring inside the tank is not above the hatch yet. So it's still at the bottom, and the rest is just condensation that is above that liquid oxygen.
Gotcha.
You know what reminds me? I was just seeing the test times, and the difference was like 1 hour and 5 minutes. It kind of reminds me of SN9 when they run 3 static fire tests on the same day, and each static fire test was sort of like 1 hour from each other.
Yes.
I wonder if they're gonna do a third one. It will be cool, not gonna lie, but I wonder if they're doing multiple of these on the same window just to take more and more data. Like, I don't know. It's just probably more data. It's just better.
Yeah, well, more data equal better, and then just like have like the head of lieutenant commander data. But yeah, CBS would probably get upset with us there. But anyway, moving on, just to keep the Star Trek jokes going, we have one that's Jermaine Smooth Juice saying, "Thank God you're here, Chris. When nacelles." I like that. Do you think Starship could ever be converted to test warp technologies in the future? I think that's every nerd's dream. And I mean, that's honestly my joke when people say, well, after Starship, what does SpaceX and Elon do next? My honest joking answer is warp drive. Because,
well, yeah, I mean,
why
you
not?
know what? Zefram Cochrane, let's think about it.
Yeah.
You know, he was quite eccentric, but also a genius. Who does that remind you of? So, you know, you never know. You need someone like Elon Musk in this world to sort of like drive things on, to make the advances, take the risks, and do it on his own dime, where it's not like almost like he's constrained by government funding or anything like that. Even though government funding has come involved now because of the way SpaceX does deals with NASA. But you do need a Zefram Cochrane, and you do need an Elon Musk, and you never know. I think warp drive, I think that's obviously not in our lifetime, but advances, that's what we need. We need the baby steps towards that sort of thing. And that's an Elon Musk thing.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Adrian, you'll understand that reference once your homework assignments for us for the next, I think 1.5 years is enough time for the 900 episodes of Star Trek that will be on your assignment list. And don't worry, there will be surprise tests. No, kidding.
Yeah, I cannot wait for like Thomas assigning me not articles anymore, but like a list of episodes of movies and shows I should watch until next week. I'm looking forward to that.
Indeed. And you know what, so much, like, thank you so much for gifting 5 more Red Team memberships. That really means a lot. The membership gifting program here on YouTube is really amazing, giving people some chances to experience some of those perks and everything. And I'll say too, like, thank you so much for that for that help. And if anyone got one of those memberships, let us know. We always love hearing who was one of those members. David Fisher, I see you in chat saying you were just gifted a well, you called it a red shirt membership. It's not a red shirt membership, but thank you for keeping with the Star Trek theme. I guarantee you it's a Red Team membership, and you will in fact be here after the first commercial break. But thank you so much. Indeed, Dale Kirkwood, thank you for becoming a Padrat member. And Jerry Jerdy, thank you so much for the Padrat membership. Thank you very much. And oh man, Mr. Muskrat, you became a Capcom member, and that means you have access to our Discord, so get ready for the hilarity 24/7, because in Discord, we never go away. We're always there with you, so yeah.
Yeah,
Tell you one thing,
especially
I'll
as
tell you a quick story.
European.
I was very new to Discord to the point that our Discord was my first Discord, maybe because I'm old. But it's very addictive, I must admit. And apparently, our Discord, because I'm a noob to Discord, I've not been on many others. Apparently, our Discord's really good, according to people who have got multiple Discord memberships. So yeah, I think that's gone very well for us all.
Yeah, especially as a European, you sometimes have a very interesting experience waking up to this Discord, because the Americans just become active when you go to sleep. So basically, you wake up and you see like chaos that engulfed the Discord over the night while you took a quick 4-hour nap. And yeah, and then you wake up and try to scroll up through all of these channels and what kind of madness happened over the night. That's my usual Discord.
The good news is we've got. The way people who know Discord and how this works, there's a multitude of channels. You've got update and news channels, which are very pure, kind of like just basically information and not any chat. We've got party chat, which is basically anything goes. We've got sports ball, where we can teach Americans what real football is. We've got tech chat. We've got all sorts of things in this. All the vehicles: Starship, SpaceX, McGregor, Artemis, Blue Origin, Roscosmos, ULA. I mean, I'm going down this list. It goes on forever. It's just like lots and lots of channels for what you particularly like. So yeah, I like it a lot.
It really is. Where we have questions like where we have arguments like what Chris Watt is asking in chat, going Star Trek. What's everyone's favorite captain? And I'll just say this, and I will get back to actual questions about the test.
Picard.
Oh man, had you asked me that 2 months ago, it would have been Cisco. Asking me that question now, it's Captain Pike.
Not the emissary. Oh, about to say you moved on to Captain Pike. Good, very good.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, UK people, if you got Sky, it's now Paramount Plus comes free with it, and that means we can now watch the New Worlds show. What's it called, Chris?
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. We can now watch it finally in the UK. So if you've got Sky, link it to Paramount Plus. It's free.
Yeah, and do it. There wasn't a weak episode in that first season, and I will refrain from saying anything else because I don't want to give it away. So back to Ship 24. Peter, thank you so much for becoming a Red Team member. Duthamer, thank you so much for the Capcom member. Yes, our hilarity ensues for the rest of your life. Haha. Shill Slayer saying, paying forward my gift from Chris K to the team that keeps access to everything space and SpaceX as close as I can possibly get to from across the pond. Thank you so much. It's truly our pleasure. We just love doing this, and we love that all of you come along for it and love what we do and love our attitude toward it, because space should be fun and talking about it should be fun, and that's definitely what we want to do. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Alrighty here. So getting back to some questions about this test. Okay, so a good question that we have here from John: has SpaceX ever tested a ship fully fueled to flight load yet?
My knowledge, that has not been the case, because as far as I know, the ships were not fully loaded for the flights, and they never reached that level on other static fires or anything. For any test. So no, I'm not aware that was the case. Ever.
Gotcha. Ooh, look at that deep. Well, folks, if you were dozing off, which I don't know why you would do because our colorful commentary was absolutely wonderful, I hope you're all awake now because that was...
Wow.
Well, that was an unmissable depress event. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Yes, that was at least the end of a certain testing area. Like, that was a proper and really sustained depress event.
So talk to me just a little bit there, Adrian, about why you said it that way, because you said it in a very specific way, the end of that particular event. So what might be our reasons that we're not necessarily sure this is the end of testing for the entire day?
I will never call a day of testing over until I see the road opening and cars returning to the pad, because we have seen them completely recycle basically a state of the vehicle. So I will always be careful when I say it's over. I'm kind of confident it's at least over for this kind of process. If we see another test, it would most likely involve a full detank of the vehicle and then basically a restarting of everything. So that's where we are right now. And just to be clear here, the likely scenario absolutely is that this is testing for today, but you can never be sure. As long as the road is not open, the road closure is cancelled, and people are at the pad again.
Yeah, because the road closure today stands all the way to 10 p.m. and we're close to a little bit over 7 hours from that. So you never know, right? They could always try something else. Maybe they test 7.1, for example. Who knows, right?
Indeed. Musical Wolves, the manager of the NSF Dad Joke department, is saying also that depress vent was depressing. LOL. Ha! Yes, indeed. I do appreciate that joke, actually, Musical Wolves.
Who's stealing my jokes?
You're right. That did legitimately make me chuckle when I saw it come up on screen. Nick W., thank you so much for the €2. Very much appreciated. Mika, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. To you too. Our hilarity ensues now with access to Discord. If you are one of those people, Capcom or above today, just give that invite link a little bit to arrive. It can sometimes take a couple of hours to arrive. So if you don't see it right away, don't panic. It'll be there shortly. And Jimmy J wasn't ignoring you here, but I did see that you asked this question twice. But good question here. What is the correct order to watch the shuttle launches in? I did STS-1 and STS-2, but they seem to get out of order. Yeah, easiest way to do that I would say is go to Wikipedia. And on Wikipedia, search list of space shuttle missions, and they will do them in the order that they actually launched them in, and just go in that order. That's what I would say to do.
The flare stack, which is not a flare, it's also active now.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So what could
an
that indication that the... Oh yeah, I was about to say that. I got ahead there. It's usually an indication that they're draining propellants. So...
Or they elected a new pope.
That too. Yeah.
We've gone with that a few times. I'll tell you what, though, if we look in the context of this, we've had 2 spin prime tests occur pretty fast after they started the test, and they've potentially concluded it. If you look at the big picture of that, that's really positive, because it shows that Ship 24 has basically gone through its requirements pretty fast and without an issue. So that's always a good sign.
I mean, and let's be real, at this point, that's kind of the expectation we have for the ships, right? They are tested. These ships are very much tested. We saw them fly. We saw them static fire a lot. So it feels really good to see Ship 24 living so far up to these expectations and just going through these test flows as we would hope it would go after such a long experience line of starships getting tested.
It said too right there, it ain't over till the big rocket sings. So there you go. Yes. Very good on that. Well, a bit from earlier when I said when Space Shuttle Discovery was asking us to make a documentary on how good they were, I said, well, if we do one for you, we have to do one for all of them, and they're saying no, just one for me, and team player Discovery, team player. No, kidding. That was good though. Appreciate it. And Malik, I'm not exactly sure what we were talking about all the way back 40 minutes ago, but thank you so much for the report. Apparently it's a diabatic effect.
Oh, yeah, the
what we were. Oh, good. I'm glad
condensation
you know. Yes.
From before, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Oh, good. See, this is why we have Alex on the stream. When we say he knows everything, like it's like.
No, it's because it's actually correcting me. So I don't know everything. It's actually correcting me from a comment I made before about how the condensation and frost looked like to be creeping up the tank. And I think I talk about when you have a can full of gas and you release the gas, it cools down, and I thought it was the other effect, which is actually when it heats up, which is the Joule-Thomson effect. That's the one when it cools down, it is the other one, which is the adiabatic effect, and it's based on many things related with thermodynamics. Yes, thank you.
Gotcha. Alrighty, so let's jump back over to some other questions here. So here's a good question. From Starman G10, who's asking, will we see a moonship prototype presumably by the end of this year? If so, how do you think it will be assembled?
That's a really good question. Remember the nose cone they painted at the production site, painted it white, put a US flag on it, and put the NASA worm logo on it? That was just an empty shell. I was hoping they were working on some internals inside it. Obviously for HLS, that's different because it's basically going to be carrying a lander. Sorry, the landing equipment, because technically Starship becomes the lander. That's what I'm trying to get out. I put my teeth back in. Basically, we've got a design change since then. The different design changes left, right, and centre to the point that if they were going to do a prototype now, I wonder if they'd do it at Roberts Road. I'm just thinking, I'm torn on this because I think the future of SpaceX Starship is to have Starbase as their development centre, as Elon's intimated, which would then test out vehicles that would then be launching at a much bigger cadence at KSC. But also Roberts Road is the facility that will supply the Starships for 39A, and we're pretty much nailed on that 39A will be involved with the launch of HLS. So I'm torn on whether we'll see that prototype being built. I think there's a fair chance we might see the prototype being built at Roberts Road rather than Starbase there.
Yeah, and I think Roberts Road is really that kind of thing that a lot of people always had in the back of their mind for years, and now it's really becoming the focus of attention of a lot of people that are watching Starship and SpaceX. And yeah, special shoutouts to A, our flyovers, and B, Harry Stranger on Twitter, which are probably the best two sources you can use to follow up on Roberts Road and make sure you're not missing anything and any development there.
Gotcha. All right, here's another question from Spaceflight Scotland. Ooh, a place I hope to go one day to see a launch from. Yeah. Yeah, that'll be the day. See, that's the day when the two Chris's are in a pub in the UK together. Like, it's happened at least twice that we know of.
You've been to York. You've seen me in York. So,
oh, yes, yes.
We haven't been to a launch together, though. Yeah.
That is true. I actually can't wait to see you and your reaction to your first launch. But anyway, the question we are getting from Spaceflight Scotland is there an update on Phobos and Deimos? I know Elon said they were very low priority, and these aren't the moons of Mars he's talking about, right?
No, he's talking about the oil rigs, right, Chris?
Yeah.
You love them. You love them because it's point to point.
I do. I am fascinated by it. I really am. I just hope it is part of the plan because they need a high cadence. And let's face it, even with the one tower, the potential of two if they apply for it correctly, at Starbase, the 1 tower at 39A, the potential of 2 towers at LC49, you still need, for this big cadence he wants for a city on Mars, you need more options. And I think when you're looking at the oil-based platforms out in the ocean, that removes a lot of the constraints with the range. It gives you more options. It certainly allows you to build up the cadence in a way that suits them, that SpaceX, and that's why they bought them. Now, the reason why people say they went off the boil slightly is because in the first, not the recent set, but the first set of interviews with Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, they were driving down towards the launch site, and Tim asked him about the oil platforms, and he was kind of like, oh, they're not really a big priority now. And everyone thought, okay, fair enough, maybe they've just changed their plans, not going to go for it. But since then, they're back in the picture, and we do know they're both berthed next to each other, where they're getting redeveloped. So I think they're holding the cards close to their chest and not saying, look, this is our plan, we're going to launch from an oil platform in 2 years' time. But they're certainly developing to the point that if they become part of the picture, they're not far off basically installing them to the point that they can host a Starship. So I would keep an eye on them, but they're not the major priority right now.
Gotcha.
And one mentioned that it's totally unrelated with this. Actually, I was looking at the log that we have here of testing out McGregor, and they have done 3 pre-burner tests on the tripod stand. So it's like today is the pre-burner day for the SpaceX. We have had 2, not pre-burner, spin prime tests. Excuse me.
Right. Yeah.
Hold on, pre-burner. Yeah, it's spin prime. Yeah, I was thinking on pre-burner. I don't know why.
Let's
Perhaps
put
because I
McGregor.
wanted to see that.
Let's put McGregor into chat, because
Yeah.
that's a wonderful thing to follow if you want to just basically see what SpaceX is up to in its little fairground of engine testing. McGregor, with all the views from the tripod stand, the other stands for the Raptors, I think there's 5 test bays now in total for Raptor 2s, which is the tripod, 2 on the horizontal, and there's also a new test stand next door to the horizontal, which they can use as well. Then you've got the Merlin stand, you've got all sorts of things. You've got the test stands for boosters when they do that, especially like Falcon Heavy, things like that. So there's many things going on in McGregor, and you get a clue of where they're going with that, because some days they'll do like 10 tests, and you can see them ramping up their knowledge and their understanding and their test data for these engines, which will play into when they're static fired at Starbase and eventually at 39A. So it's a very important part of SpaceX's jigsaw puzzle that McGregor irons out the kinks, because sometimes you'll see an engine you let go, and people who aren't probably all that savvy about engines and more about headlines and clickbaits will go, oh no, disastrous engine test failure. Actually, that's what McGregor's there for. And the irony is, about 3 days later, they'll test fire another engine from that same stand, because that was designed to take those explosions. It's an amazing place. I really want to visit McGregor one day. But for now, we have the live stream cameras you can all go and watch.
Yeah, and actually, the reason why I pointed that out is because they've done the spin prime test today, and you can actually see the difference between how it looks here with 3 and 6 engines versus 1. And actually in the tripod stand, you can see it very nicely because it's very high up and it's 1 engine, so you don't see a lot of venting in the way, and it is very very noticeable. That's the word. Like, you can actually differentiate how it, when it is a spin prime test, when it is another thing going on.
There we go. So, a slightly different question here, but definitely sort of germane as we continue through these test campaigns and everything with Ship 24 and Booster 7. But we got a good question here from Dougal, who's saying SLS has potential launch dates now. Does that affect which you think will launch first, SLS or Starship? And to that, I say no. My answer to this question has not changed. I just now can't wait to see if someone will give a public date for the Starship test that will just show. I still think they're going to end up in the same week as one another, just because that would be amazing. But that's been my answer from the beginning. So, nah, SLS having potential date doesn't change my answer to that. We'll just see if Starship aligns with it. That's my answer. How about Chris? You next.
You know what? I don't know. I don't speculate on these things because they've been long-running dramas, especially SLS, where I just want them to be successful. I'm not really. I mean, especially now with the Artemis goals of using both vehicles for the end goal. I'm going to go with SLS going to launch first because the complex nature of testing of Starship, especially with the boosted static fire and that eventual 33 static fire, I think once we get past that, we can start looking at launch dates. Before then, it's still testing. SLS has gone through its tests. It's now past that point where Starship and the booster would be, and now it's in a launch flow. So it's going to roll out, and it's probably going to target for end of August, as I've said. Maybe it'll slip slightly, but I think it'll still be for Starship.
Gotcha. Adrian?
Sorry, chat. So I said previously December because I expected Booster 7 issues. I expected these issues to be later in the test campaign and not at the first Spin Prime test. So I did that on the Monday stream, and I will repeat it just again, not to go on a long tantrum again, but I think Starship will fly in Q1 2023. I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's what I believe.
Should I say it too?
Yeah, oh, indeed.
Well,
no one gets away with not answering here. Yes.
I've been saying for a long time. I think Starship is Q4 2022, and to be honest, SLS has a launch date, but you never know because there's weather. Like there could easily be a hurricane in the way or something that delays the launch, and we've heard from the managers today that if they commit to put the vehicle out there for a launch in those period of time, they will need to go back. Hold on, is that the road closure? Yeah, that's the road closure that we're showing right now.
Yeah.
Are they deputy and sheriffs moving?
Are they clearing the road now?
Interesting. There are definitely a lot of cars approaching it.
Off to do some crime fighting in Brownsville.
Yeah, but turning down that side access road there.
They might be changing. It seems like one car changed for the other.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, so what I was saying is that if they do not meet that launch period, they need to roll back to be able to recertify the FTS system. That was sort of what they said, and they wouldn't even be able to hit late September, early October timeframe because they need to roll back and reconfigure the rocket and everything. Like, it takes time, so it will be sort of like at the end of October. I don't know, like when you account for all of this, there's a chance SLS gets delayed just by weather alone, because like the peak activity in Atlantic hurricane season is like right in that week. Like I actually saw a chart today showing that the peak was actually on like the last week of August, first week of September. So it's like, oh man, they could have chosen any other time of the year. They chose exactly the week of the year that is the peak activity of hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean. So it's like, yeah, you never know, right? And then obviously there's issues that may arise, like they may try the first time and they don't go into loading at all because they have some sort of issue, or and they scrap 3 times. If that happens, we're in the same position here, right? So all of this is just to say that I'm not gonna be saying is Starship first, is SLS first. I'm just gonna say I think Starship is gonna be 4th quarter of 2022, and while SLS has a launch date right now of August 29th, there's a good chance that it delays just because of how complex it is. It is a first launch. There's a lot of constraints in the way and everything, and also the weather. So there you go. I'm not committing to an answer, but
there we go. So basically, Alex is refusing to answer the question. So we'll.
Yeah, I noticed
hey, but
that
I gave
as
my
well.
opinions.
But you did. No, that was all good. That was all good. And you know what? I just wanted to take a quick moment to say to all of you who are watching, thank you all for joining us. Just wanted to go over real quick what we're seeing here. We saw Ship 24 go through 2 spin prime tests of its engines, the 6 Raptor engines, 3 sea level and 3 Raptor vacuum optimized engines here. And then we saw a depress event, but that doesn't necessarily mean that testing is done yet. So we're not going anywhere because testing might not be done. They might just be in between tests or something like that. So we're going to keep up this, and I want to run through and speed run some super chats here that have come in. But first and foremost, I want to go over a good question that came in from Nikolai, who's saying, I have a question here. What actually is a spin prime test? Chris, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I will, because what I'll do is I can help you by saying you can actually put the command into the chat room, and Nightbot, our friendly Google helper, will tell you that spin prime means that the engine's turbopumps were brought up to speed, but there was no ignition. And I read that word for word because I typed it in myself as a command. So there you go. That's what the spin prime test is.
There you go. There you go. So thank you so much, Jimmy J, upgrading his membership to Capcom. Thank you so much. So our wonderful hilarity and voices will continue for you in our Discord. And Liftoff, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. And James Jury's here with some support and also asking a few questions here. I don't know why my voice cracked like that. We'll try that again. Asking a few questions here. How much longer do you think Astra will be around? 2 out of 7 orbital launches, getting to orbit, not great. Also, do you think Firefly has much of a future, considering key parts of their engine are built in Ukraine? I'll take the first part of that with Astra, and I'll pass Firefly off to Alex or Adrian here. Astra, I mean, no indication that Astra is going anywhere. They are in their investigation from the most recent failure that they had, and we are waiting to hear what the result of that was and when return to flight will be for them. So that's my answer to that one. Alex and Adrian, to the Firefly one, the question continues, does Firefly have much of a future considering a key part of their engine is built in Ukraine?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be more worrying for the company if it would be Russia. That would have been way worse. I think it's always it's an interesting market to observe. I'm getting pinged that my voice is real low now. Is it better now? Okay.
Lower, Adrian, lower.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
There we go.
Yeah, I think with Firefly, it's like with all of these small sat launchers, it's a very crowded market with a lot of competitors, and they also have all that kind of different idea how to approach things and how to approach the market. So it's always interesting who gets it right, and I'm really interested in that, and I'm really looking forward to all of these small sat launchers competing. As of the Ukraine situation, I doubt that will be a big factor. I think it will more be about who gets the markets right and who gets to a reliable launch cadence first.
Speaking of Red Team memberships, we just got in. I'm gonna get off and actually put some content in for the Red Team members. How about that?
There you go.
Yay!
So there you go, new members. Red Team and above, you'll see that stuff that Chris B is about to post. But Chris, thank you for joining us real quick here, hopping on as we continue to see if there's any more testing that Ship 24 will be doing here today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there. Alrighty, so yes, indeed. So Jimmy J saying, oh, keep up all the great work that you do. Sorry, didn't mean to double ask the question. Oh, yeah, I just saw the double questions and just wanted to point out that we did see them both, so you didn't think we were skipping one. That's all that meant. But thank you very much for that. Andy saying hello from Colombia. It's a holiday today, so watching all of you. Well, thank you so much for joining us on your holiday down there in Colombia. We really appreciate it. And glad you are watching as well. And glad everyone's watching from wherever you are around the world. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching on what is the I think we'd be remiss if we didn't also say on the 53rd anniversary of our moon landing. Apollo 11, 53 years ago today, touched down on the surface of the moon. And then just a few hours later, humanity took its first steps on another world. And now you are looking at the vehicle that is the lander that will return humanity to the surface of the moon here in a couple years' time. So what a wonderful thing to be staring at, and what a wonderful thing to be testing today on the anniversary of the lunar landing. Yehuda asking, will the booster ever go through a spin prime test again? And I think that's a yes. Most definitely they're going to take the booster back through its spin prime tests and everything like that. For all of that, yeah, just because of what happened. Because of what happened earlier doesn't mean it passed its spin prime test. So I would anticipate we're going to see that basically just return and resume and redo it and go forward from there. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be modified to deal with whatever happened with the first test. So they basically modify it to don't have this result again. So maybe, for example, they do like ring by ring. But I think we will see more spin prime tests on the booster. I mean, we see them now. We see them today on the way more tested ship that they know so much more about. And even on this, they do 3 spin prime tests. So they did 2 today and they did 1 on Monday. So if they do 3 tests on a ship, I expect that they also test the booster with more spin primes.
There you go. And another good question here from Pascal, who's saying, what are the possible reasons for the different levels of propellant loads for the same tests without thrust, spin prime or preburner?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question, because we had a very different LOX load on this test compared to the test on Monday. But I'm actually not sure. I would need to go into very wild speculation here, why I think that is, and generic answer here. I know that's sometimes disappointing to get a generic answer, but my generic answer is because SpaceX tests different test flows and different state of the vehicle, and that's why also the fueling level of the tanks is different in these tests. I know that's generic and probably not a satisfying answer, but it's the answer I have.
I mean, it's better than my answer on what's launching first, right?
Yeah, that non-answer. Yeah, that's what we call in the education world, quote, meeting the word limit requirement on an answer. No, I joke. Another good question here from Jonathan. Do you think the repeat spin prime tests close together is an indication of their intended static fire test pattern? Oh, so basically a question here saying, oh, well, they did 2 spin primes. Do we expect them to sort of repeat each test as this goes forward?
It would be unprecedented, because so far that was not the behavior they did. For example, the one shining candidate in the range of weird test patterns is SN9 with the triple static fire on one day. But so far that was never preceded by 3 pre-burners in one day or 3 spin primes in a day. So I don't think it's related. I think it's just that they wanted to test something that they didn't get out of the first 2 spin primes, and so they did a third. I doubt it will be a simulation for the static fire.
Gotcha. An everyday Astro Kid saying, hey guys, how do you think SpaceX will stack the HLS Starship? HLS doesn't have flaps, which rules out the chopsticks. Keep it going for the stream. Well, I'm actually going to take a shot at answering that. And Alex, Adrian, correct me if I am wrong. So it is not the flaps that the chopsticks actually grab. There are little pins right underneath the top flaps. Oh, we can see some venting there from the aft.
Yeah.
Of the vehicle. Gonna keep pressing ahead with the answer to this since I don't hear a loud venting, and we always like sound here at NSF. So, but it's the pins that the chopsticks actually rest on and actually bear the weight of the vehicle as it lifts up, and the other little attach points are underneath it. So the fact that the lunar variant, or moonship as I personally call it, does not have the aero flaps since it doesn't need them, at least in the latest render that we saw, moonship does not have them. That does not actually affect chopsticks picking it up, so it would be stacked the exact same way because those support pins would be there.
Yeah, it's there's basically two misconceptions. That's a word I cannot do. That are flying around sometimes. One is the ship is not lifted by the upper flaps, and the booster is also not lifted by the grid fins. That's both. They are lifted on pins. It almost looks like that, and I get where that feeling is coming from and that idea, but they are not actually resting on these heavy platforms. They are small little pins, I mean small in a Starship sense, that are used for these lifts. Also, just a thought here, if HLS is called Moonship, should Starship to Mars should be called Planetship?
Well, if you call it that, it would be called Planet Express Ship. So
yes,
yeah.
Actually, one thing I should point out is the ship. It is lifted by the pins, but the pins are on the arms, not on the ship, which is interesting to point out because the booster is the other way around. The pins are on the booster, and it just basically it's all on the it's held on the arms. Ah, geez, it's super hard to English today. Yeah, it's just like that. It's the opposite. One has the pins on the arms and the other doesn't.
There we go. There we go. Alrighty, so another good question here. Oh, Liftoff is asking, what is SBL? That's right, we do keep saying SBL a lot. SBL is Starbase Live. So these camera views and a bunch of others are on another video stream that we have on our channel called Starbase Live, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a rotating view from different camera angles that's always up, always live, and covering everything at Starbase from the launch site to the production facility. So if you are new to our channel, definitely check out that stream, because just when we're not live on commentary with these special event streams and everything like that, you have access to watch what is happening over on Starbase Live 24/7. So head on over and check that out. And also, if that doesn't satisfy you, and let's be fair, I would want to watch everything that's out there, and I do, we've also got a McGregor Live, that all the engine tests that they do with the Raptors and the Falcon 9 stages and the Falcon Heavy stages, we've got a dedicated stream for that too that's also up 24/7, so definitely check all that out. All right, here's a good question from Senti, who is asking, did they detank? And I think the answer to that is yes, based on the frost lines, right, Adrian?
Yes, the frost line is receding, and we saw a long depressed vent, and we also still see the vent stack, as Alex called it, on the left being active, which also is I say also a lot. Now I'm aware. I say it again. Is used during these detank procedures. So yes, they are in the process, it seems, to save this vehicle. And the frost line is receding, and yes, they are probably close to having this thing at the bottom.
Sometimes we should also point out that frost sometimes can be deceiving. One has to be able to differentiate when it is the sort of frost that we were talking about before, when you depress the tanks. You're basically cooling down the tanks, and so they form frost on the outside. But you can sometimes differentiate when it is that kind of frost from the kind of frost that is just basically in contact with a cryogenic liquid. And you can sort of see that right now here, where there's some ice up, sort of like at the level of the arrow covers of the flaps, of the aft flaps. But then right at the bottom of the LOX tank, you can see a very defined line of ice. That is sort of the difference that you can see between one kind of frost and the other. Just because not always when you see frost, it means it is either getting liquid or not. It sometimes can be a little bit deceiving. So one has to have a good eye and be able to differentiate that. And you know, that is usually given to people by watching live streams. So watch more live streams, come with us, you know, and get more experience. You'll get there.
There we go. Okay, so another good question here, and we've actually got two versions of this question that are very similar, so I'm going to ask them both here. So Robert Thompson is asking, did Ship 24 lose any tiles during the Booster 7 anomaly? And there is a follow-up question to that after, but let's take them one at a time. So did Ship 24 lose any tiles during the Booster 7 anomaly?
To my knowledge, it did not. So far, I don't recall any flying tiles on Ship 24 at all.
Alrighty, so then the next question that we have regarding the tiles, have we spotted any missing tiles? And that's more just a general question. Have we noticed, have the tiles, let me try that sentence all over again. Have we noticed how the tiles have held up during the cryogenic tests this week on Ship 24?
I haven't seen any of them dropping. Have you seen any?
No, I looked at that before because I was curious with with them performing multiple tanking actions on this. Usually, what we saw in previous test prototypes was like a popping of suddenly a bunch of tiles, where you could just see them like blowing off 8 tiles at once. So no, I don't see that yet. I think so far they have a flawless tile record on this vehicle, which I like.
There we go.
Some people mentioning the tape.
I think we should address this because a lot of people say this, if it's okay, Chris. People are saying they're filling it up again. I don't see indication for that.
Yeah,
the recondenser
I'm actually
still
seeing.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, signs of the opposite, of not filling it up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're still on the air because the road is still closed, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner of the screen there under the Ship 24 engine testing banner. That the road is still closed, so the test window is still ongoing, and it does go into tonight. So we're not gonna go away just yet until we sort of get a sense of exactly what the forward plan here is with Ship 24 and for the day as well. But a good question that we have here from Corona Kivo, who's asking, can you drive down Highway 4 to Starbase during this test, or do they only allow SpaceX employees up to the roadblock? And that's a good question. So obviously no one is allowed past the hard roadblock that's on your screen now. We obviously see people in activity beyond that, but is there a roadblock further up that they, like on testing days, only let employees and residents of the village through to? What do we know about that for people who are trying to plan a trip to Starbase around this testing right now?
To my knowledge, you're basically not even allowed like in the village, right? So,
yeah, there's a self checkpoint. I think it is 7 miles down the road, if I remember correctly.
So your best watch opportunity is South Padre Island during this test, right?
Yeah, and that's been my experience being down there as well. So sort of when you're in Brownsville, that when you get to the part of Highway 4 that becomes very isolated, and the only thing at that point is basically out to Starbase, there's a soft checkpoint there on testing days, and then there's the hard checkpoint here. So they do try to prevent you from getting close to that. So do definitely be aware of checkpoints of where they are. Always a good idea. You know, the local law enforcement down there is very friendly. They know people are wanting to come see all of this as well. So, you know, if you are down there and you do have any questions, just ask. You know, just ask if you see a deputy. Just ask. You know, hey, what's the rule here today? And they will be more than happy to tell you that, because sometimes it might be slightly different depending on what's going on. So if you do just want to have that most recent information, ask them. They're the ones in charge of the roadblocks, so they would be the ones to know. But that's what I would definitely say to do. A couple more super chats here. Narmaster saying, Narmaster, thank you for becoming a Padrat member. Thank you for that membership and that continued support. Very much appreciated there. I know Chris is posting up some new membership, oh my goodness, my gracious, my brain totally froze there. Is posting up some new member exclusives, so you should have access to those too very shortly. Mike'Zilla asking, when is the dental work on Ship 24 set to begin? Does that mean the loading of the Pez dispenser stuff?
I think so, and I would expect that, like, if they want to load a test payload after the full test sequence of Ship 24, that would be my prediction. Basically before the final stacking.
Gotcha. And Just Dead with the support saying, to the man reading the super chats, read me a bedtime story. Your choice, I just need your voice. Well, thank you. I'm glad you appreciate my voice. And then Keith Carson's
Ian
asking...
is the best for that.
Wait, say what?
I think Ian is the best for that. Soothing voice.
Potentially. But thank you, Just Dead. I appreciate it. And yeah.
We could just like do an all-star voice cast with like you, Ian, and like Thomas, just on a live cast. It would be, I think a lot of people would be very happy.
I bet you're true.
There you go.
And then Keith Carson asking, have you all... Oh god, this is another question that's going to get Adrian in trouble. Have you guys all watched For All Mankind? And if so, what do you think? My answer is yes, I have seen For All Mankind, and I really appreciate the alternate history narration here. Adrian, do we have you? Are you going through a tunnel? Did you hear the question okay?
Well, if you look at Ship 24 right now, there's a lot of interesting stuff happen. No, I have not watched For All Mankind as well.
Adrian! I mean, I guess I shouldn't be upset because you're always here and you're always on stream. And you're always commenting. I mean, so I think that works.
Daytime job, NSF, like, there's a lot of stuff happening in my life, and I can tell you it's not shows.
You rewatch Lord of the Rings. Come on.
Yeah, that's I watched that last time on Christmas because that's a Christmas tradition.
Oh boy.
I don't think Adrian has ever seen a video other than NSF. Okay. That's a good one.
All right. And Krista Blake has a good question here saying, do we know how many tiles are on Ship 24? And also, Chris G, do you know how many tiles the shuttles had? It's between 17,000 and 18,000 for Ship. And the shuttle orbiters had roughly 24,300, but that varied from orbiter to orbiter, depending on which one you were looking at. So that's a roundabout number for what the orbiters had. So, indeed. And do just want to make a quick correction here. And thank you to Nick in our back channel, who's actually saying, you know, we were saying we didn't see any of the tiles after the spin prime test, but Nick is saying that indeed, yes, there were a few tiles after the first spin prime on booster 7 that were seen being repaired thereafter. So just wanted to note that for the question from earlier. And here's another good question from KBM Sweden, who is asking, why aren't they testing Ship 24 on the pad? And there's a confusing answer to this because they are testing it on the pad, but I think what this question is actually meaning is the orbital launch mount. Why is it not on the orbital launch mount undergoing this test?
Fit. The orbital launch mount is fitted to hold a booster, basically. that's the whole reasoning. these pads, these test tanks, not test tanks, test pads, are made exclusively to be able to test the ships. Whereas the orbital launch mount, because you gotta have the booster first and then the ship on top, like you could probably do sort of like Saturn 1B on the mobile launcher from Saturn era and everything, a mixed tool kind of thing. Yeah, but that will be very complex, right? When you just have this.
And here is a here's a good question from LMAO. I love the name. Walk us through why all of these little specific tests are necessary.
Well, they are kinda also increasing in riskiness for the vehicle and also for everything around it as well. We basically going like the first test we always see is an ambient pressure test. Then they move into a cryo. Then we get like spin primes. Then we get to pre-burners and then static fires. So they are moving in like how much propellant is used, how much engines are used, how much thrust is used. So you're basically reducing the chance that while you find a problem on the way, you destroy A, your vehicle, or B, the whole infrastructure around it, and damage nature and everything. So yeah, it's basically a step-by-step approach to make sure you're safe to go to the next step. And that's common for rockets. We see other rockets performing like tanking tests before some of them perform fire tests and then performing real flights. They are basically going through different kind of tests before they arrive. See SLS, for example.
There you go. I do have to ask this one. Saffron 2000 is asking, Adrian, do you actually own a TV?
No.
No, there you go. He does not.
No, I own a PC with like 5 screens, but no, I don't own like some sort of area where I watch TV or something. I watch rockets a lot and other YouTube videos. That's kind of what I watch.
No, there we go. And Rob Proctor here with a good question. What was the outcome of the potential fire in one of the hydraulic units on B7? I remember lots of smoke. Was that the ignition source for the fire?
I don't think so. The fire. So I'm sure. I'm sure they're referring to the fire. The ignition source for the fire, they're probably referring to the one that happened next to the tower. I don't think so, because it was quite far away. I think that was probably a totally unrelated thing that was near the base of the tower. I think we actually saw pictures of some trailers with equipment, which were the ones that burned, so probably some equipment that caught fire with all the liquid oxygen that was being dumped. Yeah, we kind of saw some fumes coming out of the hydraulic power unit. I wonder how's the state of that, and obviously we don't have a good view inside the mega bay, so we cannot have any actual pictures of that, of the aftermath. But well, we'll see what happens, how it comes back. I'm sure it'll be okay. It'll be just fine. They'll just, repair whatever it's left, and that's it.
Gotcha. And KBM Sweden saying, maybe make some coffee, maybe a late testing with NASA spaceflight. Yeah, well, I mean, if they test late at night, we'll be here. Definitely don't worry about that. Because who needs sleep, right, guys? Right? I mean...
What is sleep?
Exactly.
Just honest question. Is that when you close your eyes? Because I have not happened that to me for a long time.
But you're feeling better and everything, right, Adrian? Because you were sick there for a while, but you're on the mend, right?
Yes, I had the pleasure of having COVID, which is not a nice thing to have, and I cannot recommend. Honest feedback. Wouldn't recommend COVID.
Yeah. Same, and definitely stay safe out there, everyone, too. Definitely stay safe. And James Atkinson is saying, please tell me that the first pub on Mars will be called the Mars Bar and sell chocolate milk. And I would love that. But I also think there's a nice moment of like having like an alcoholic drink and just sitting there and marveling at the fact that you're sitting on another planet. I think that would be cool too. But I mean, chocolate milk at the Mars Bar, that could work too. I could see that.
Yeah, I think a Mars bar, alone for the pun, it's fantastic. I
It's
would
good,
I
yes.
would go for Mars bar.
Exactly. All right, so here's another good question from Radical Isotope, love the name, who's asking, why are engines tested horizontally instead of vertically with the nozzles pointing up?
Huh.
I
Hold on.
I honestly don't think there's a reason why an engine couldn't be tested with a nozzle just pointed up, except you just aim it horizontally because it's easier to mount that way.
You know what that reminds me of? And it's kind of related of a few things coming up later this week. The AJ260, I think it was.
Yes.
The big solar rocket motor that they built for the Saturn V.
Yep.
And and they fired up upwards. So it was like a silo, and it was put in there with a nozzle pointing up, and then they fired it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is actually, I mean, there is no legitimate reason why it can't be done. It's just honestly like it's easier because most of the times the way you're grabbing the engines, right, you're grabbing them on the engine bell, so either inserting them up vertically into the rocket with the nozzle hanging down like it's intended, or inserting them horizontally on test stands like that is just easier from a ground handling perspective. That's least how it's always been sort of described to me as the reason. But yeah, there are definitely videos, like you said, Alex, of them shooting right up in the air. There are some, going back to what we were talking about earlier, nuclear power engines, where there are some videos on YouTube of nuclear engines being tested aimed straight up too. So no reason it can't be done that way. Just easier to do it the others. Here's a good question from Starman G10, who is saying, how come the E-Dome test tank hasn't been tested yet? When will we see its testing?
That's a good question.
It's just sitting
Do
there,
we know
right?
the answer? I don't think so.
It's sitting there,
just
right?
sitting there.
In this shot, we can see it in front of the orbital tank farm, right? Right.
Yeah.
Right in front of the 8 orbital tanks. And another vent, by the way. But yeah, it's so far very quiet around it. I could see it getting tested maybe after 7.1 is done. Maybe. That they kind of have it on wait there until 7.1 is done with its test campaign, which we saw testing yesterday, which I forgot earlier.
Oh, and actually, that's a good question. If we could pause really quick, just because Wyatt has a good question saying, what is next for the B7.1 test tank?
I hope a test to destruction because I like to see them. We have seen them before, and I hope it's one again.
Well, you heard it here. Adrian wants a test to destruction for the 7.1, the small test tank, not the ship. To be clear.
I do want. Oh no, go ahead, Adrian.
Just as a side note, it's not flight hardware, so it's fun to see explode.
Yeah. I do really want them to get rid of 7.1 just because I kind of feel like whenever they actually have Booster 8 ready, they're gonna be bringing it to that test stand. That's the structural test stand. Obviously without the cap. I don't think they're gonna put the cap on it for the Can Crusher kind of style testing. But mostly because I will expect Booster 7 to already take up the Orbital launch mount. So you can have Booster 7 on the Orbital launch mount getting ready for static fires, whereas on the other stand, on the structural test stand, you can actually run cryos of Booster 8. So you can have 2 boosters out there tested. So yeah, like I would really like that. Dual flows. Why not?
Why not indeed? Why not?
We need more test stands for all these vehicles.
Yes. All right, and Brady G in chat saying very excited for Artemis 1. Fingers crossed for August 29th launch. Just wish it wasn't so early. Yeah, for those of you who did miss the news a little bit earlier, we're going to talk just a little bit about the sister program to the Starship program, and something Starship is definitely involved in, the Artemis program and the human lunar return to the moon. And earlier today, on the 53rd anniversary of the first lunar landing, NASA did confirm that August 29th is the penciled-in date that teams are working toward for the first launch attempt for the Artemis 1 mission and the SLS rocket. And that would result in the opening of the 2-hour launch window that day at 8:33 a.m. Eastern or 12:33 UTC. So for you guys over in Europe, really great. For those of us here in the US, that basically means, and I was talking to a couple members of the team about this earlier, I just said, so that means with fueling, no sleep. Excellent, excellent. Would not truly have it any other way for the first attempt, but that is that. And then Starship will, will have its role as the lunar lander for the Artemis program. So definitely fingers crossed for Artemis 1. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just I really get more and more excited for SLS the closer this gets, because I never saw these SRBs fly, for example, in my life. I didn't watch the shuttle flights or anything. So seeing such a beast of a rocket take off will be, at least for me, will be very, very high hype and interesting. So I'm so looking forward to Artemis 1. And yeah, I cannot wait to see that giant rocket fly.
Indeed, and it has been it had been until December of last year. It had been about 10.5 years since I had experienced those large solid rocket boosters and what that all feels like and is, until getting down to the Ariane 5 launch of James Webb. And man, that launch, those boosters are smaller than the ones on SLS, do not get me wrong, but man, I mean, bigger than anything that had flown since then over here, and that just really reinvigorated me for SLS and what that is going to feel and sound like as that gets off the ground. So, yeah. But for those of you who are joining us, SpaceX did conduct 2 spin prime tests with Ship 24. You can see that the timestamps are on there if you want to scroll back to witness them. You can definitely do that there with those handy timestamps. But yeah, but Adrian and Alex, what are we currently seeing? Because it definitely looks like that frost line is more or less completely gone now. But the road is still closed.
Yeah, I think we... Okay, go ahead, Alex.
No, go you.
Okay. I think we are in the final stages of saving this vehicle. I would not be surprised to see cars lining up to go to the pad very soon. Because yes, this looks like very decreased activity at this point. And we don't really see anything spooling up anymore or any really major events. So this is a very, this is the usual state that you would expect before they bring cars back to the pad and basically, yeah, get ready to resume on-pad operations. So yeah, I think we are in the final stages of this test. However, and here comes the however, if suddenly the recondenser spools up again and the tank farm spools up again, they are going for another flow, which we cannot rule out with a testing window that still goes over 6 hours.
Well, this is a vent.
Yes. It's a very solid depress vent, and I would not be surprised if we now see the cars coming.
That was sort of
Also-
so for another movie that that Adrian hasn't seen. This is sort of like the Crocodile Dundee movie, where like the earlier one was like, that's not a vent, this is a vent.
You're absolutely correct. I have not seen that one as well.
See, I mean, at this point, I'm just convinced I can just say that in general and be correct. No,
Yeah, just go with movies that are not Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or like Stargate. You're fine.
We're fine. I like that.
I gotta say, this is amazing. The venting, the power, and everything. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yes. Radical Isotope with the joke that I love. This is quite eventful. Very good. Very good. I approve. I definitely approve.
I guess if there were any sort of doubts that this is pulling down, I guess that was a very loud proof that yes, it is pulling down.
Yeah, but the tricky part is with the test window, like we just want to make sure that road really opens, right? Because it's definitely like what you were saying, Alex, right? I don't want anyone to think that you were saying something wrong. You were not at all.
No, yeah.
Just that we want to make sure
totally
that they're not done with like test 1 and might move on to a different test while the road is still closed. So exactly what you just said, this is that depress is a great indicator that what they were doing is wrapping up. We just are going to wait to make absolutely sure that they're not moving into something else potentially really quickly. So definitely going to stay here. But yeah, like we said earlier, if you were Oh. Okay, that's a weaker vent. Just see, I'm trained to stop talking when it starts to vent. Ah, that might be our first car. Well, that's the first car that didn't turn. So that is potentially the first one in the convoy, because we do see that, right? Adrian and Alex, like we tend to see cars start to line up because the workers are getting ready to return to the pad. And we've seen a lot of cars come by, but they've always turned to the right and gone down an access road. And that looks like a second one. So this is more good indications that we're, that we might be done with the road closure version of this.
Oh, and that's the van.
Yeah, that's the Shuttle van that is always also in one of the last. Yeah. They are lining up.
Yep. Well, at least for now, they're gonna be going back to the pad, it seems like. As we said before, and you were great and right to point that out, and I said it's just pulling down. Yeah, it's just pulling down for now. You know, they could be coming back, and then they'll be like, hey, we're gonna test something more, and then maybe E-Dome or 7.1, or maybe again Ship 24. We'll see what happens.
Indeed. And, you know, before we, you know, Just Dead, thank you so much for saying he, you know, just listening in, love all the great times, been here ever since the hop pop was a thing. Oh, the hop pop. Yes, I love that. And thank you all for the amazing coverage. Really appreciate it. Just Dead. Josh Ritterhoff saying, if we were in charge, what would you pick as the new designation for the Starship launch complex at LC-39A? I don't think it's fair to call it LC-39C, maybe 39A.2. Haha. Well, I can start this answer off by saying 39C actually already exists. It is a bare concrete pad inside the perimeter of LC-39B that NASA built to say, hey, come launch off of 39B when we're not using it for SLS, and literally everyone with an active rocket said no. No, I don't know. I mean, I'd actually be in favor of just calling it 39A Starship, to be totally open about it, but definitely see that there. And then yeah, go ahead.
I think it's just 39A because it's still like the same complex, right? Same perimeter.
Well, so. Exactly, and technically 39C is inside the perimeter of B, so you can have different designations inside the perimeter. But I don't know. I kind of like just calling it 39A Starship, or just 39A, and then just differentiating which one at A it is. And then Happy Hacking Video Blog, I like the name, said, I'd love a Starship plus booster plus chopsticks tower Lego set. I definitely think that would be cool. And, you know, to tide you over until they get that, you could always have some prints of the chopsticks and the booster and the ship all there together, including that full stack there. We've got a lot of good stuff in the merch. This is another, I know a lot of people ask, how can we help you out? You know, we love to help you guys out in many different ways. You know, head on over to our store. If there's stuff there, definitely take your pick. I know a lot of people are loving the metal prints. And definitely you can check out the assortment there. That one, a great photo that we got from a team member there of the full stack of Starship there. So definitely you can head on over and check that out, shop.nasaspaceflight.com, and see what tickles your fancy there. But I think with that, Alex and Adrian, thank you so much for joining me and rolling out today. And thank you for Thomas, too, who was our first host for this test stream here today. But I think, and Michael, too, who's in the background, pulling the levers, pushing the buttons, and making all of this possible. Thank you all for joining us and everything. And we are going to send you back to Starbase Live now to keep watching all the fun and excitement as we head toward first orbital flight. Thank you all for joining us. See you later, nerds.
Bye.